A demon lord cries out in anguish as his undead army swarms the battlefield. They tear through the last of the human resistance. A final, desperate explosion rocks the castle walls. But inside, a legendary duel is underway. A lone swordsman with eyes of fire meets every blow from the demonic commander. Steel rings against impenetrable armor. Their blades dance in a flurry of light and fury. The impact shatters the very ground they stand on, and with one final strike, the battle is over. Eidos, the Empire's greatest warrior, stands victorious. He is the Knight of Hell, a so-called Death Knight. The demon commander's helmet begins to crack, shattering and falling to the floor, revealing the warrior beneath the dark armor. A single red eye burns with cold fury, but as the shadows recede, a familiar face appears. Wait, that's not a demon lord, that's a lady. She looks out over the ruins of the city, sighing. The Empire's banner hangs tattered and torn. A voice echoes, pleased with the destruction. A dark figure gloats over his long-awaited revenge. A plan 1,000 years in the making. The Archlich Dorgo has finally won. The Emperor Howard can only scream in despair. Dorgo, however, finds his enemy's curses adorable. He asks if it's time for the coronation. He's unified the continent, so he feels he's earned the title. Emperor Howard can only watch, utterly defeated. Dorgo floats ominously above the ground. He addresses his victorious demon kings and Death Knight. His first order is simple. Bring him the crown, the shining symbol of the fallen empire. His commanders are all too happy to oblige. Eidos approaches his master, prize in hand. Dorgo praises his most loyal knight for his service, asking how he should be rewarded. Eidos simply presents the crown without a word. But Dorgo scoffs at the idea of a reward. After all, being his slave is the best job perk there is. Just as he reaches for his new headwear, Eidos shatters the crown in his fist. The other commanders can only stare in disbelief. A defiant act of pure rebellion, followed by a fist straight to the Lich's chest. The blow sends the new emperor flying. His generals immediately move to retaliate, but Eidos stands firm, ready for them all. Dorgo is stunned, his defenses completely bypassed. Eidos finally speaks, his voice his own. For the first time, he is moving by his own will. The Lich is furious. He'd erased his puppet's mind. But Eidos was merely a prisoner in his own body. The Archlich is left utterly speechless. His shock quickly turns into a twisted smile. He'll let his masterpiece vent before taking back control. But Eidos unleashes an explosion of dark energy, a power that even surprises the Archlich. His demon kings are wiped out in a single strike. Dorgo decides if you want something done right, you have to summon an entire army yourself. He unleashes his Legion of the Damned. A tide of bone and rotting flesh, but Eidos stands unfazed before the onslaught. He utters a single, simple command, and the entire army grinds to a halt. He tells them all to surrender. His will overwhelms their very being, shattering them into nothingness. Dorgo can't believe what he's seeing. He's created a monster that rivals the gods. Guess he should have read the user manual. The Archlich tries to calm his creation down, reminding Eidos that this body is disposable. But Eidos has been planning this for a long, long time. He lunges forward with blinding speed, unleashing a technique designed to destroy the soul itself. The Lich realizes he's in actual danger. A little late for that, buddy. The soul-severing strike connects perfectly. Dorgo's physical form begins to crumble, but he laughs it off, denying the technique's power. Famous last words. But from the dissipating energy, a new form emerges. A spear of pure malice, Dorgo's true essence. His soul is now a weapon aimed at the world. It detonates in a final, desperate attack. As the light fades, the Lich's skull hits the dirt. His reign as emperor was impressively short. Eidos delivers one final message. He crushes the Lich's skull beneath his heel. Emperor Howard can only stare up at the lone warrior. He has absolutely no idea what is going on. Can't say I blame him. With his master gone, Eidos finally collapses to his knees. He whispers that his long nightmare is finally over. But there is one last thing he must do. He needs to apologize to those he wronged. Even if it means meeting them in death. He remembers all the lives he took under Dorgo's control. A single tear of regret falls for the man he was forced to become. And with his final mission complete, his body goes still. A brilliant light engulfs his vision. A gentle voice calls out to him, asking why he's sleeping outside. He thinks he's getting one last look at her before the end, but he's confused. She looks so much younger. She just laughs, thinking he's trying to sweet-talk her. His older sister tells him to get inside before it rains. He sits up, looking at a home he thought was long gone. He remembers the day he destroyed this place himself. Looking at his own hands, he wonders if this is all a dream. Or was his life as a Death Knight the real nightmare? The sudden shift in reality is a little much to handle. He spots a simple stick on the ground. An idea begins to form in his mind. He finds a nearby boulder that will serve as a perfect test. He takes a familiar stance, gripping the stick as if it were his legendary blade. He puts all his focus into a single powerful thrust. The stick shatters instantly against the rock. Turns out it wasn't Excalibur. He stares in disbelief at the result. A manic grin spreads across his face, because the boulder he struck is now covered in cracks, and then it explodes with impossible force. Eidos can only tremble at the sight. A quiet chuckle escapes his lips, which quickly turns into a full-blown, unhinged laugh. He falls to his knees, overwhelmed by it all. As the rain begins to fall, he clenches his fist. The downpour soaks him to the bone. He grips his shirt, the feeling all too real. This is no dream. He's truly finally returned to the past. He remembers his old life and the one talent he possessed. The talent for disappointing his family at every turn. What an overachiever. His brother bursts in, furious about a fight with a noble, an act that would have dire consequences for his sister. He remembers her being taken away in a carriage, forced into a marriage to clean up his mess. He remembers her tears as she begged him to explain why he'd gambled away their family's land. His father's final command was simple: leave. And so he walked away, leaving his family in ruins. But as he reached the door, his sister called out his old name. She stood there, offering him a bag of money. She just wanted him to be happy, no matter what. Even though he had single-handedly destroyed her future, she held out the pouch, a final act of kindness. But he slapped it from her hands in shame. He ran from the house without looking back. The day he abandoned everything he ever cared about. For the first time, he understood true guilt and shame. And now, the rain falls on a different day. Eidos kneels, questioning how this is even possible. He wanted to apologize, not get a full-blown do-over. The sun breaks through the stormy clouds, as he wonders if this is some kind of miracle. He looks at his own trembling hands, realizing his body is too weak to use his old techniques. A power like wave-breaking amplified every blow. He remembers wielding it with devastating force, a memory from his life as a Death Knight. He'd learned the technique from a powerful foe, the knight known as the Castle Wall Destroyer. Talk about a resume builder. A voice suddenly calls out to the young master. A young servant boy comes running toward him. Eidos struggles to place the familiar face. He vaguely recalls the name Victor. The boy asks why he's still out here, as Eidos plays dumb about the trouble he's in. Victor can't believe he's pretending not to know, but our boy is still lost in his own thoughts. Back at the manor, a furious voice echoes. He walks in just in time to be disciplined. His father strikes him for his transgressions. The man's eyes burn with rage. His mother and sister try to hold him back. As Eidos realizes he's returned to this exact moment, his sister Louise begs their father to stop. He looks at his family, all together again, and whispers how much he's missed this. To their complete confusion, his family can only wonder if he's actually crying. His father, Damien, demands to know what excuse he has this time, but Eidos simply says he has none. His father is left completely stunned by the response. He can't believe the boy who always made excuses is silent. Eidos admits he's sullied the family's honor and takes full responsibility. His father scoffs, not ready to let the matter go, but Eidos interrupts, bowing and vowing to make up for it. He takes a determined step forward, promising to fix his mistakes. Then he turns and walks towards the door, leaving them speechless. He promises to accept his punishment upon his return. His family can only stare, completely short-circuiting. His father wonders if he hit his head a little too hard in that fight. Eidos heads out into the merchant city of Landwork. Victor, the young servant, announces they've arrived at their destination. The boy is worried, mentioning rumors of a dangerous syndicate. Eidos tells him to leave if he's afraid, but Victor refuses to abandon him. Our boy just smiles, saying he's only here to apologize. Victor is clearly not convinced that things will go smoothly. Eidos walks into the courtyard alone. He believes this second chance must have been granted by a god, and he vows that this time he will not hurt his family again. He remembers his one true talent, stomping all over his family's future. 2 guards at the entrance notice his approach. They block his path, reminding him he was warned not to come back. Eidos tries to recall their faces from his hazy memories. He calmly states his intention to apologize to the owner. The 2 thugs are taken aback by his polite demeanor. They laugh at the noble boy suddenly acting so respectable, but they admit he's not the roughneck they were expecting. The thugs start talking about his sister's beauty. One of them grabs Eidos, suddenly willing to accept his apology, but only if Eidos introduces his sister to him. Eidos' expression turns dangerously cold. He really thought this could be a simple apology, but now he's holding the thug's knife. Well, that escalated quickly. The red bandana thug yells in disbelief. Just before his arm is cleanly severed from his body, Eidos stands over him, blade in hand. The man can only stare at his missing limb in shock. A dark, murderous aura begins to radiate from Eidos. He tells the other thug he'll show him what a real roughneck is. His eyes glow red, a demonic shadow looming behind him. From a safe distance, Victor watches in absolute terror. He screams, realizing the apology tour is officially over. His cries of horror echo through the street. Bystanders hear the commotion and wisely decide to keep walking. The remaining thug is furious, demanding to know who he is. He boasts about being part of the Black Snake Syndicate. The name finally jogs Eidos' memory. He remembers them all too well. A shadowy organization that was expanding its influence. He recalls the incident that started this whole mess. He'd complained about an overpriced bill at their bar, which earned him a swift punch to the face. They beat him senseless in front of a laughing crowd. Eidos smirks. Realizing he's the one who's owed an apology here, the thug warns him that being a noble won't help him. He brings his sword down in a furious arc, but Eidos sidesteps the blow with impossible ease. He grabs the thug by the throat, his eyes burning with a cold fire. He'll hold back his rage, but only for his family's sake. With a single fluid motion, the second thug is on the ground. Eidos calmly assesses the situation. As more members of the syndicate arrive, their leader demands to know who he is. Eidos explains he's here to see the owner about an apology. The leader isn't interested in talking, and orders his men to attack. The thugs charge forward, but Eidos just looks bored. He lets out a quiet sigh, and in a flash of impossible speed, he moves through them all. He plants his foot, the fight already over. The leader can only stare in disbelief. His men are scattered across the courtyard. Eidos realizes he's already panting. This new body is a real downgrade. The leader immediately tries to surrender, a little late for that. But Eidos lunges forward, delivering a powerful blow to his chest. Inside the syndicate's tavern, life goes on as usual. Patrons drink, unaware of the chaos outside. The leader looks up, completely stunned. He finds a knife pressed against his own throat. Eidos tells him he should have listened when he was being nice. He steps into the tavern, leaving the defeated leader in the doorway. His eyes glow, the blade still in his hand. The patrons begin to scream and run for their lives. With the tavern cleared, Eidos declares the nuisances are gone. A voice from the balcony demands to know what all the noise is. The bar owner, Anderson Holm, wonders where his guards have gone. Eidos calmly informs him that he's already dealt with them. The owner is stunned to hear he defeated the Black Snake members. Eidos introduces himself, stating he's from the Haxon Viscounty. He clarifies that he's not here to cause trouble, but to get an apology. He reminds the owner of the time he complained about the overpriced bill, and how his men beat him senseless for it. An incident that branded him a drunken troublemaker. He explains that because of that day, his family lost everything. His eyes burn with the memory of his past failures. But Anderson just scoffs, feigning ignorance. He mocks Eidos, saying the Haxon family has no honor left to lose. He calls him a foolish noble, completely dismissing his words, and demands payment for the damages. Customer service is clearly not his strong suit. Eidos' expression twists into a dark, knowing smile. He was willing to be merciful, but that time has passed. He launches himself into the air with impossible speed, vowing that the owner will pay for what he said. His eyes glow with a menacing purple light. He closes the distance in an instant, but just as he's about to strike, a cloaked figure appears and blocks his attack. Eidos is shocked by the strange energy emanating from the man. He's thrown back, landing perfectly on the floor below. The bar owner welcomes the newcomer, Sir Ted, who arrived just in time. Eidos grips his knife, surprised by the man's skill. He asks why a true knight is working in a place like this. The hooded warrior stands ready, his red eyes glowing ominously. In this world, there are warriors known as knights, who are ranked based on their skill and power. The highest rank, official knights, can freely wield aura, a power that lets them perform superhuman feats. They are transcendent beings who can shatter mountains. Basically, they're walking blenders. The bar owner laughs, feeling completely safe now. He boasts that Ted is an apprentice knight, close to the syndicate's boss. Eidos looks up, calmly processing the new information. He smirks, realizing that explains the faint aura he felt earlier. The hooded knight is stunned, wondering how Eidos sensed his power. Eidos puts the pieces together, deducing that Ted must be a washout who failed to become an official knight. Ouch. The owner asks his bodyguard how much it'll cost to get rid of the kid. But Ted is furious, his pride wounded by Eidos' words. He leaps from the balcony, smashing into the floor below. He lunges forward, vowing to silence Eidos for good. The blade comes straight for his head, but Eidos dodges the strike with ease. Ted lands in a crouch, surprised by his opponent's speed. He admits Eidos is skilled, noting his sharp movements. The hooded knight's eyes glow as he prepares another attack. He unleashes a wide slash, forcing Eidos to slide back. Eidos is already panting, realizing his new body is at its limit. Turns out a Regresser's biggest enemy is cardio. Ted growls in frustration, challenging him to dodge the next blow. He begins to gather a massive amount of energy into his blade. Eidos' eyes narrow, recognizing the technique. The apprentice knight unleashes his secret move, a powerful downward slash. Eidos prepares to counter with a technique of his own, but his mind flashes back to a different time, a different fight. He remembers facing the legendary Phantom Assassin, because nothing says imminent danger like a random flashback. He remembers the day he faced this technique before. The assassin had mocked his lack of understanding. He'd unleashed a secret art, his eyes seeing the truth of his foe. At his level, he could perceive the water within a person's body, a weakness he could exploit with a single cut. His blade of death was designed to be an instant kill. The Death Knight's body was torn asunder, but the assassin's victory was short-lived. As the severed parts began to writhe and reform, the Death Knight pulled himself back together, much to his foe's horror. The assassin realized he wasn't fighting a man, but an undead monster, and Eidos, as the Death Knight, prepared to return the favor. He focused his energy, mimicking the technique he'd just witnessed, and unleashed the blade of death right back at its owner. The assassin could only scream, wondering how his own move was used against him. His final moments were filled with pure, unadulterated terror. Another powerful warrior fallen by Eidos' hand. The flashback ends, the memory reflected in his eye. He reveals the greatest power he gained as a Death Knight, the ability to absorb his enemy's skills. Talk about a killer app. The bar owner can only stare from the balcony in utter shock. His smug confidence has completely vanished, replaced by the cold, hard sweat of pure fear. He hits the floor, begging for forgiveness from the House of Haxon. Eidos looks over the treasure offered as compensation. He admits it's not quite enough, but decides to let it slide. He calls out to the doorway, telling someone to come pack it all up. A terrified Victor peeks his head in, answering the call. The young servant can't believe what he's seeing as he gathers the riches. He wonders when his young master became such a terrifying swordsman. As they leave, the owner and his men bow deeply, offering a very sincere farewell. Victor can't believe the amount of money they're carrying, but the bar owner vows to get it all back from Eidos. He suddenly realizes he's forgotten something important. Eidos delivers one final punishing strike. He gives a cold warning reflected in the blade. The owner can only seethe, promising this isn't over. Eidos and Victor walk away into the sunset. He knows this act won't wash away his past sins, but in this new life he's been given, he vows not to disappoint his family again. He tells Victor it's time to go home. The sun shines down, marking the end of a long day. Elsewhere, at a grand estate known as the Lion Bloom March, a young man muses that pain always follows love. He's asked if his serious expression means he's heading to battle. He just smirks, saying no. He's going to find love. Good luck with that pickup line. Back at the Viscount Haxon's estate, Eidos walks in, feeling well-rested for the first time in ages. Victor, however, is still haunted by the previous day's violence. Eidos admits things went a little off-plan, but they did get a hefty reward. More importantly, rumors will spread about what happened, ensuring no one will take their family lightly anymore. Victor is surprised by his master's newfound self-awareness, but he's still worried about retaliation from the Black Snake Syndicate. Eidos assures him they won't dare attack a noble family. Victor then asks the million-dollar question: where did he learn to fight like that? Eidos gives a vague excuse about training, which Victor is clearly not buying. Suddenly, a furious voice echoes through the hall calling for Damien. Eidos confidently tells his father he's handled everything. He has Victor present a bag overflowing with gold. He claims it was all a simple misunderstanding, and the tavern owner offered the money as an apology. His father is skeptical, so Eidos points to Victor for confirmation. He gives the poor kid a look that says, "Play along." Victor nervously confirms the story, much to his parents' relief. The young servant can only sweat, caught in the lie. Eidos just smiles, a master of creative truth-telling. Later, under the bright sun, Eidos pushes his body to its limits, running until he's completely exhausted. He laments how weak and slow his new body is, but he has a solution for that. He pulls out a glowing tonic he acquired from the tavern owner, a small vial of shimmering purple liquid. He recalls it's a powerful tonic from the Alchemy Academy, a group known for their legendary potions. Their creations were said to be worth as much as gemstones. Looks like that apology was more profitable than he let on. He grins, realizing just how lucky he is. Without a second thought, he prepares to drink it. He uncorks the vial and downs it in one go. A surge of potent energy courses through his body. He clenches his fist, feeling his strength return. He must regain the power he had in his past life. He remembers his old master, the Arch-Lich Dorgo, and the army of the damned he will create in just a few years. Before that happens, Aidos must be strong enough to kill him. Only then will he be able to protect the family he once destroyed. He takes a deep breath, his resolve hardening, and with a final vow, he sprints toward his future. Meanwhile, under the light of a full moon, a sinister tower looms over the city of Landwork. Inside the Black Snake's hideout, a man declares an asset useless. He looks down at the defeated form of Ted, their best hired hand. The syndicate's boss, Cedric Walker, orders his men to get rid of him. He waves off their concerns with a dismissive gesture. After all, in his world, money can buy a replacement for anyone. But just as he turns, he finds Ted standing right behind him. The apprentice knight is on his feet, sword in hand. The boss quickly changes his tune, offering medical care and a new contract. Ted's trembling hands tell him exactly what he thinks of that offer. He lunges forward with a furious roar, but his blade is stopped by a mysterious cloaked figure. A hand crackling with dark energy holds the sword at bay. Ted can only stare, stunned by the impossible power. The newcomer asks if the boss will be his first contract. The boss agrees, eager to see what his new hire can do. The cloaked man begins to chant an ancient, wicked spell. Ted screams as the dark energy begins to consume him. Shadowy creatures with gaping maws swarm from the darkness. He looks up in horror at the monster looming over him. The cloaked figure just smiles as Ted begs for his life. The creature opens its mouth, ready to devour him whole, and in a flash of purple light, the shadows converge, leaving nothing but a pile of clothes on the stone floor. Well, that's one way to quit your job. The boss and his men can only watch, disgusted by the display. He asks the newcomer if he's satisfied, requesting a cleaner job next time. The boss then explains the next contract, a noble who's caused them trouble. The boss wants his new target to suffer greatly. He offers a generous advance for the job. The cloaked assassin accepts with a wicked grin. Looks like Aidos has a new fan. Meanwhile, Aidos pushes his body to the breaking point. He trains relentlessly, building his strength. The ground cracks under the strain of his workout. He notes the supplement has worked wonders on his stamina. But as he takes a break, a thought crosses his mind. It's been quiet for days with no sign of the Black Snake. He suddenly senses a presence nearby. A rustle in the bushes confirms his suspicion. He clenches his fist, ready for a fight, and lunges at the figure with blinding speed. But he stops his punch just inches from its target. His eyes widen in shock. He's grabbed the intruder by the throat. It's his younger brother, Abel, who can barely speak. Aidos immediately lets him go. Abel catches his breath, commenting on his brother's newfound strength. A dark memory flashes through Aidos' mind. He realizes what he almost did. He offers a hand and a sincere apology. Abel just stares, completely bewildered. He gets up, brushing off the apology. He's heard about the incident at the bar and the fight that followed. He accuses Aidos of lying to their family again. But Aidos calmly admits that he was the one who fought. Abel refuses to believe it, yelling that he can't be fooled. He lectures his brother about bringing shame to their name. Aidos just places a hand on his head, silencing him. He tells his brother he's changed, but a servant comes running, shouting that there's bad news. Aidos rushes down the hall, bursting into the main parlor. He finds his parents with an unexpected and unwelcome guest. The man casually sips his tea, greeting Aidos' arrival. He explains he was just recounting the events of a recent banquet. What a coincidence. Aidos recognizes him instantly. Erwin Lionbloom. The memory of that day comes flooding back. He remembers confronting Erwin at a party, accusing the noble of insulting his sister, Louise. Erwin had leaned in close and admitted to everything with a twisted, mocking grin. Aidos remembers the rage that consumed him, and the punch that followed. He'd sent the smug noble flying across the room. A single blow was all it took to knock him out, but now Aidos realizes it was all a setup. Erwin smirks, revealing his true intentions. He's always admired Louise. His father demands to know what he's implying. Erwin proposes a marriage between himself and Aidos' sister. His parents can only stare in horror. Even his younger brother is left speechless. Aidos' eyes narrow. This is exactly what happened in his past life. Erwin offers to forget the whole incident. But Aidos' father refuses the thinly veiled blackmail. The young noble's expression turns cold. He reminds them of the insult and the power of his family's name. He gives them a choice: face his family's wrath, or give him Louise's hand in marriage. His father knows he's trapped, unable to refuse the powerful family. The rest of the family watches from the doorway, helpless, but Louise steps forward, accepting the offer herself. Her father cries out, begging her not to sacrifice herself. Abel agrees, yelling that she shouldn't have to fix Aidos's mistake. Aidos can only look down, the weight of his failure crushing him. Louise forces a smile, insisting that she'll be fine, a decision that brings a twisted grin to Erwin's face. Guess he's a real people person. He stands, praising her for her wise choice. He walks towards her, promising to send a formal request soon, but Aidos moves to block his path. Erwin leans in, taunting him with the title of brother-in-law. Louise looks on, her expression filled with worry. The smug noble asks him to speak up, and Aidos's mind flashes back to his past life, to the moment he let his rage take over. He remembers sending Erwin flying across the room. He'd thought he was protecting his family, but he was only making things worse. He remembers a day, years later, when they came to visit. He'd been so excited to see his sister again. He peeked around the corner, ready to greet her, but his smile froze on his face. He saw Erwin grabbing Louise by the hair. He remembers the cruel words and threats. He remembers her being thrown to the floor, and Erwin's promise to break her spirit completely. The memory fuels a rage far colder than before. Back in the present, Erwin stands before him unharmed. Aidos stares, the vision of that terrible future burning in his eyes. He remembers the crushing guilt of his past life, the moment his sister was taken away because of him. But this time he refuses to let rage control him. Just kidding. He sends the noble flying with a single punch. The commotion alerts Erwin's personal guards. They burst into the room to find their master on the floor. The two escorts immediately draw their blades on Aidos, but Erwin slowly gets back to his feet, his hand tightening around the hilt of his sword. His parents can only watch in absolute terror. The young noble is furious, his eyes burning with rage. His own men try to hold him back, but he snarls at them to get out of his way. One of the guards decides to attack anyway, but Erwin shoves him aside with incredible force. He repeats his command, his anger palpable. His siblings can only stare from the doorway, stunned. Erwin approaches, demanding an answer from their father. Louise knows this will only end in disaster for her family. She steps forward, pleading for them to stop. But Aidos puts a hand out, blocking her path. He tells her not to sacrifice herself for his mistakes. This time he will handle his own mess. He challenges the noble to a duel of swordsmanship. Erwin scoffs, saying he has nothing to gain from it. So Aidos asks if he's simply afraid to lose. A classic. The taunt hits its mark, fueling Erwin's rage. He accepts the duel with a wicked smile. And so, the stage for their battle is set. Their father can only hope his son has a plan. Abel tells his father not to hope for a miracle. He knows Erwin is already an official knight. The noble taunts him, asking where his sword is. Aidos just smirks, revealing a simple dinner fork. His family can only stare, wondering if he's lost his mind. Guess the silverware drawer was closer than the armory. The two combatants take their positions in the courtyard. Erwin believes his opponent is just bluffing out of fear. He charges forward with blinding speed. But Aidos dodges the first strike with ease. Erwin can't believe he missed. He decides to get serious, channeling his power. He unleashes a flurry of crimson slashes, a technique known as the fierce roaring lion sword. The attack tears through the courtyard, carving a deep trench into the earth. But Aidos stands completely unharmed. Talk about a close shave. Erwin and his men can only stare in disbelief. He realizes Aidos dodged every single one of his attacks, but our boy has already analyzed his entire fighting style. He remembers fighting a far greater foe in his past life. Erwin's older brother, Michael Lionbloom, and he knows Erwin is nowhere near that level. Ouch. Talk about a sibling rivalry. Aidos's eyes narrow, sensing the next move. Erwin unleashes his aura, daring him to dodge again, but Aidos plants his foot, ready to counter. The noble brings his blade down from above. Aidos decides to use a sword saint technique. Their powers collide in a massive explosion. His siblings can only watch in absolute awe. Erwin stares in shock, his blade now in Aidos's hand. He slides the fork along the blade, unleashing a secret move of his own. Erwin realizes the duel is already over. Aidos moves in for the final strike, pressing the fork against his throat. The move is too fast for anyone to follow. The noble is completely and utterly defeated. His siblings can only stare in disbelief. His parents are equally stunned by the outcome. Even Erwin's own men are left speechless. The fork is held steady, a clear and present threat. The young noble trembles on the ground, defeated. Aidos tells him he's being merciful for his family's sake. He declares himself the winner of the duel. Erwin can only grit his teeth in humiliation. He gives one final, simple command: get lost. Later, the family eats in an awkward silence. Aidos finishes his meal, thanking them. He announces he's off to his morning training. His father watches him leave, still processing everything. The tension at the table is palpable. His mother asks if he's going to question Aidos. Abel is still trying to understand his brother's sudden change, but his father tells them to let it go for now. He believes Eidos will explain when he's ready, though privately he's dying to know the truth. He admits to himself that his own son is now terrifying. Talk about a glow-up. Meanwhile, Eidos prepares for his intense workout. His mother calls out just as he's about to leave. But it's his sister, Louise, waiting for him with a sword. She wants to talk about what happened yesterday. Eidos immediately realizes he should apologize. He bows deeply, sorry for his reckless actions. He promises it will never happen again. But she quickly stops his apology. She places a hand on his shoulder and simply says, "Thank you." Louise admits she was terrified of the marriage. Even though she agreed, her heart was screaming no. Eidos listens, finally understanding her fear. She recalls how he stepped up to protect her. She was both sorry for the trouble and glad he was there. And that's why she wanted to thank him properly. She smiles, wiping away a tear of pure relief. Eidos is taken aback by her sincerity. He smiles, telling her he's the one who should be grateful, thanking her for everything she's done for him. As he turns to leave, she calls out his name. She tells him to take the sword with him. He recognizes it as their father's favorite. She explains their father wanted him to have it for his training. She hands him the blade, saying their father loves him, even if he's not good at showing it. She then adds a stern warning, never use a fork again. Guess that's a new house rule. Eidos takes the sword, feeling its familiar weight. He looks at the blade, a silent message of thanks on his lips. He clutches it tightly, overwhelmed by the gesture. Elsewhere, his father wonders what that sudden breeze was. That night, under a full moon, a dark energy approaches the estate. The guards at the gate are completely oblivious. The cloaked assassin emerges from the shadows, ready to strike. A dark energy seeps into the quiet manor, creeping silently through the halls, its shadow falling across the floor. Eidos sleeps, unaware of the danger, as does the rest of his family. The assassin approaches his sister's room. He finds Louise sleeping peacefully and looms over her bed like a nightmare. He leers, commenting on her appearance. Guess HR isn't a thing in the Assassin's Guild. He reaches out, ready to complete his contract, but a voice suddenly stops him in his tracks. Eidos stands in the doorway, sword in hand. His eyes burn with rage as he demands an answer. He explains he sensed a strange energy. The assassin is stunned. His sleep spell should have worked. He decides to attack without another word, unleashing a powerful blast of dark magic, but Eidos deflects it with his father's sword. The assassin demands to know who he's facing. Eidos calmly reminds him whose house this is, and asks what he was about to do to his sister. The commotion begins to wake the household. The assassin realizes he's running out of time. He dissolves into a cloud of shadows to escape. Eidos yells for him to stop, but it's too late. The dark energy flies out the broken window and vanishes into the night. Eidos wonders if he's gone for good, but then he notices something. A faint trace of the assassin's energy lingers. He knows this situation is far from over. The next morning, the stable hands are in a panic. One of the Viscount's prized horses has died overnight. They have no idea how to explain the sudden loss. But Eidos arrives, saying he had a bad feeling. He calmly tells them not to worry, asking only to be left alone in the stables for a moment. He places a hand on the fallen animal. The trail of energy he lost last night led him right here. He recognizes the eerie aura immediately. Dark mana, which means the assassin is a powerful dark mage. He decides to keep this from his family for now. No need to ruin their beauty sleep. He'll handle this problem on his own. He follows the lingering trail of dark energy, which leads him far beyond the city walls. The trail ends at the mouth of a hidden cave. Inside, the assassin is busy with his work. He gloats about tricking the Black Snake's boss, who provided him with a wealth of rare materials. He laments having to take on such low-level jobs, but with the church hunting him, he has little choice. Suddenly, he senses an unwelcome presence. He turns to find an unexpected guest. Eidos stands at the entrance, making a crack about the smell. Guess he's not a fan of the decor. The assassin recognizes him as the Viscount's eldest son. He demands to know how he was found. He realizes this kid is more than just a reckless noble. Eidos confirms the assassin was hired by the syndicate, and tells him he's about to pay the price for accepting. The dark mage is taken aback by his confidence, but his shock quickly turns into a wicked grin, eager for a new plaything. Eidos explains he promised himself not to kill in this new life. But for dark mages, he's more than willing to make an exception. The assassin is stunned, realizing this is no ordinary noble. He unleashes a volley of dark energy, determined to end this now, but Eidos cuts through the magic with a single swing. He closes the distance in a flash, shocking his opponent, and brings his sword down in a powerful, clean arc. The blow splits the dark mage's shadowy form in two, but Eidos watches as the body begins to reassemble. The mage reforms with a twisted grin, impressed by the boy's power. He mocks Eidos, saying a simple cut won't be enough to stop him. Eidos' eyes glow, ready to test that theory again and again. He unleashes a flurry of phantom blades. Guess if at first you don't succeed? Try again. The mage admits his opponent is skilled, but warns him that he was dead the moment he entered the cave. Shadowy creatures begin to rise from the ground. The mage reveals the entire cave is a trap to ward off the church. Eidos realizes this could get complicated. The assassin gloats, promising to make him suffer. He unleashes a powerful curse designed to rot his body from the inside out. A wave of dark energy engulfs Eidos completely. The shadows writhe and twist around him. The dark mage laughs, confident in his victory. He figures this level of pain should satisfy his contract. He turns away, ready to go after his original target. But a sudden noise makes him freeze in disbelief. Eidos stands completely unharmed as the curse dissipates. The mage demands to know how he resisted the dark magic. Eidos admits that he's just as surprised as his foe. He realizes his body has developed a natural resistance to dark mana. Talk about a useful perk. He wonders how he still possesses the authority. A flashback reveals the Archlich Dorgo. Performing a ritual with a mysterious urn, he looked down upon his greatest creation, the Death Knight. He'd given Eidos the strongest body in magic, but it wasn't enough. To create the ultimate weapon, he would offer a piece of himself. He would bestow upon him the power of a god, a power known only as authority. The dark energy was gathered, and unleashed in a torrent of pure malice. The Lich watched as his plan came to fruition. He focused all of his will into the spell, engulfing his creation in a storm of incredible power. The divine energy was forced into Eidos' very being. He could only scream as his body was reforged. A brilliant flash marked the end of the ritual. The Archlich looked on with satisfaction, finally obtaining the perfect weapon. A single purple eye glowed with immense power. His Death Knight now possessed the authority of God. Back in the present, Eidos recognizes the authority of greed, a power he thought he'd lost forever. As another blast of dark magic flies toward him, he deflects it with a simple kick. The mage demands to know how he survived the curse. Eidos just smirks, chalking it up to having a good trump card, or maybe just some good old-fashioned plot armor. He recalls the assassin mentioning an organization called Yulan, a name he recognizes all too well. A group of assassins who specialize in dark magic. The dark mage senses something is wrong, deciding to end this quickly. He reveals he has a trump card of his own, a glowing artifact on his wrist, a glowing bracelet that amplifies his dark mana. He unleashes a torrent of green, fiery energy. His very arm begins to twist and deform under the strain. The assassin's face contorts, his body overflowing with power. Eidos calmly notes the impressive amount of dark mana. He deduces the bracelet is an artifact used to store it. The assassin taunts him, saying there's no way he can handle this. He reaches out, ready to unleash his hellfire. A monstrous maw of pure energy opens wide, and unleashes a devastating blast right at Eidos. The green flames swirl violently, consuming everything. The mage declares the fight is over. Guess he's never seen a shonen anime before. But Eidos tells him he's gravely mistaken. The assassin watches in horror as the flames do nothing. Eidos stands unharmed, the energy swirling around him. He realizes the authority of greed doesn't just dispel magic. It absorbs all dark mana completely. The mage can't believe a mere noble possesses such a power. Eidos just tells him to think of it as having better gear. He admits he hates using the power given by his greatest enemy. But to defeat this foe, he'll use his Death Knight techniques. The assassin recognizes the aura blade of a swordmaster and panics. Eidos tightens his grip on his father's sword and unleashes the soul-severing slash. The dark mage can only stare in absolute terror. The brilliant blue energy slams into him. His shadowy form begins to crack and shatter. The entire cave is torn apart by the force of the blow. Eidos stands victorious, his purple eye glowing with power. The assassin lies defeated on the cold stone floor. He offers the mage a choice. Talk, and it will be quick. All he wants to know is the location of the Black Snake's hideout. Sometime later, a carriage makes its way back to the city of Landwork. Inside, Victor questions why his master is returning to the source of all their trouble. Eidos just smiles, telling his loyal servant to be quiet while he reads. Victor asks what he's so focused on, eyeing the creepy-looking book. Eidos explains it's a dark magic grimoire, a souvenir from his last encounter. The young servant knows enough to be worried. Those things are notoriously dangerous. He then notices a strange, dark aura emanating from his master. A faint purple energy seems to leak from Eidos' very being. The carriage finally pulls into the bustling city streets. They've arrived and Eidos is ready to get to work. He hands Victor a heavy sack, telling him he has a special task. He calmly explains that it's a person's head. You know, as one does. Victor tries to laugh it off as a terrible joke, but one peek inside confirms his worst fears. Eidos casually tosses the bag into the air. He tells the hyperventilating servant to calm down before he draws a crowd. He tucks the grimoire into his belt, promising to explain later. For now, Victor just needs to deliver these gifts to a specific location. The poor kid can only imagine what kind of trouble this will cause. Meanwhile, Eidos arrives at a sinister tower in the heart of the city. He approaches the two guards standing watch at the entrance. He notes how brazen they are, setting up shop in the middle of town. He introduces himself by his birth name, Damien Haxon. The guards just mock him, unimpressed by the noble title. But the name jogs one of their memories. Their boss mentioned him. Eidos tells them to step aside so he can speak with their leader. To his surprise, they seem to agree, but one is hiding something. He reaches behind his back, pulling out a flintlock pistol. Looks like they're not the talking type. The guard fires his pistol straight into the air. A red flare streaks across the evening sky. The other thug mocks Eidos for his foolishness. On a nearby roof, two cloaked figures take notice. Suddenly, syndicate members pour into the street, surrounding Eidos from all sides. The guard calls it a welcome present from the boss. Looks like they rolled out the red carpet. But Eidos just gives a confident smirk. He warns them that they're about to regret this. Elsewhere, the governor of Landwork, Sebastian Baker, enjoys a lavish feast. Along with the city's knight, a man named Robert. The governor thanks his guests for joining him. He and the syndicate boss, Cedric, discuss business. The governor agrees to hand over control of the city's districts. He boasts that his authority will handle any complaints. Cedric then turns his attention to the knight. Flattering him with empty praise, Robert blushes, completely falling for the act. The boss offers his full support as the party continues. But in his mind, he seethes with contempt for them. He plans for his syndicate to take over everything. A vision of a giant snake looming over the city. He imagines them all bowing down to him. This guy has some serious delusions of grandeur, but a subordinate bursts in, calling for the boss. Cedric is annoyed by the interruption. He steps out of the room to hear the news. His man whispers the urgent message. The knight overhears the name Damien Haxon and freezes. The boss fumes, wondering what his hired mage is up to. He's just glad he had a backup plan in place. The boss tells his man not to worry. After all, the kid came here to die. But Eidos stands unfazed by the mob. He unleashes a torrent of dark purple energy. His eyes glow with a familiar, menacing light. He moves in a blur of impossible speed, sending the entire welcoming committee flying. The two cloaked figures on the roof watch the chaos unfold. They seem to be waiting for the perfect moment to intervene. One of them mentions having a favor to call in. Guess it's time to phone a friend. The syndicate boss can't believe what he's seeing. He'd come out to the balcony expecting an easy win. Instead, he finds his men scattered across the courtyard. He wonders how a single kid could do all this. He confirms with his subordinate that it's really Damien Haxon. He'd heard the rumors about the Viscount's useless son. He now realizes his hired dark mage must have failed. The boss panics, running back inside to get help. But a new threat appears on the rooftop, a mage with a glowing orb. Eidos looks up to see three of them, ready for a fight. The lead mage unleashes a massive fireball. The fiery projectile hurtles toward the street below. But Eidos just raises his sword, ready to meet it head-on. The mage scoffs, wondering if he's really trying to cut fire. The blade slices cleanly through the flames. Eidos unleashes a secret technique of his own, sending the attack right back where it came from. The mage can only stare in absolute disbelief. The redirected fireball slams into the rooftop. Eidos stands victorious, figuring he's about done here. Now it's time to meet the boss of the Black Snake Syndicate. But he suddenly senses a powerful presence behind him. An armored knight slams into the ground with incredible force. Eidos lands gracefully, looking up at the newcomer. He can feel the man's aura, a sign of immense power. The knight was wondering who was causing all the trouble, and deduces his opponent must be an official knight. The townspeople can only watch as the situation escalates. Eidos realizes the city's official soldiers have arrived, which can only mean one thing. A furious voice echoes, demanding to know who caused this chaos. The governor, Sebastian Baker, has arrived to punish him personally. Eidos calmly asks what he's done wrong, much to the official's rage. He's accused of attacking a kind businessman and his innocent employees. Sure, we'll go with that. The syndicate boss smirks, feeling completely untouchable. Eidos finally identifies his target, inviting him over for a punch. He mocks the governor's laughably poor judgment. The official demands he beg for forgiveness, but Eidos refuses. Having had enough, the governor calls for his knight. Sir Robert takes a single heavy step forward. The city's guardian knight towers over our boy. He introduces himself and demands Eidos surrender. The knight notes his opponent's complete lack of fear. Eidos just tells him that he's confident. The knight decides he's just a fool. He unleashes a powerful blow, which Eidos barely manages to block. He admits to himself that this fight won't be easy. For now, he just needs to hold out until the right time. He dodges a powerful thrust from the knight's spear. The impact still sends him flying. This guy is the real deal. Eidos struggles to hold back his true power. He glances away, wondering where his backup is. The knight taunts him for his lack of focus. Eidos is shocked by his opponent's incredible speed. The knight lands a powerful blow, sending him reeling, and brings down a massive axe, seemingly ending the fight. The city guards watch, stunned by the display of force. The governor and the syndicate boss can't believe their eyes. But the knight senses another presence, demanding they show themselves. A cloaked woman appears, surrounded by a holy aura. Her eyes glow with the divine light. She stands before Eidos, ready to intervene. Talk about a timely arrival. The knight recognizes her immediately, a paladin from the church. Eidos just smirks, asking what took her so long. Just then, Victor arrives with 2 more cloaked figures. He announces his arrival with all the subtlety of a charging bull. The syndicate boss begins to sweat, realizing the church is involved. The governor panics, wondering if his dark dealings have been exposed. Eidos pinches Victor's cheek, teasing him for his tardiness. The paladin confirms that Victor delivered the message as planned. The young servant proudly puffs out his chest, a mission accomplished. The scene flashes back to a few hours earlier, at a grand cathedral in the heart of the city. Inside, a group of nuns and priests are deep in prayer. One of them is the very same woman who just saved Eidos. Victor bursts in, carrying the evidence his master gave him. The nun calmly approaches the frantic servant. He explains he has proof of someone working with a dark mage. Her eyes widen and she asks to see the evidence immediately. She takes the grimoire, confirming the faint but undeniable trace of dark magic. She recognizes a specific symbol on the cover. He then presents the second piece of evidence. She opens the bag without hesitation, revealing the head of the dark mage inside. Poor Victor is going to need therapy. She identifies him as a high-ranking member of the Yulin assassins. Back in the present, she grabs the governor by the collar, demanding to know who sent the boy to her. She turns to Eidos, asking if he's Damien Haxon. He confirms his identity, and she declares the church is taking over. The governor and the syndicate boss quickly agree. She thanks them with a deceptively sweet smile. Eidos watches his plan unfolding perfectly. The Holy Church is known as a powerful organization, merciful and charitable to the common folk. But they are absolute fanatics when it comes to heretics. You do not want to be on their bad side. Their vanguards are the elite warriors known as paladins. And now one of them is on his side. The paladin addresses the crowd, announcing an investigation. The people wonder who would dare work with such evil. She declares the church will be in charge until the culprits are found. The governor protests, citing the city's right to self-govern. But she reminds him that the church's authority is absolute. Her expression turns dangerously cold. She declares that he and his knight are prime suspects. The knight is stunned, denying any connection to a dark mage. She points a finger at the syndicate boss, Cedric, stating that protecting such a man is suspicious enough. The governor demands an answer, but the boss denies everything. But the paladin reveals she has hard evidence. A notebook detailing every single item he bought for the mage. Looks like someone forgot to shred the receipts. The governor frantically denies any involvement with the dark mage, but the paladin isn't listening, ordering her men to take him. The syndicate boss and his men are rounded up, protesting loudly. The governor is led away, staring back at Eidos. He realizes the kid planned this entire thing from the start. He knows he can't be taken by these fanatics. The syndicate boss begs Sir Robert not to surrender. But the knight is already in chains, being led away. He gives a small, defiant smirk. He decides that being taken alive is certain death. He shatters his chains with a burst of pure energy and grabs his massive axe from the ground, vowing to kill them all and escape. The syndicate boss grins, hoping for a distraction. But Eidos knows the knight is making a terrible mistake. The knight charges forward, his aura flaring. But the paladin meets his attack with a single hand. She calls him foolish for resisting. The knight can only stare in absolute terror. As her fist connects with his jaw, the syndicate boss's smile evaporates instantly. So much for that escape plan. Eidos just watches, his plan working perfectly. The paladin's fist glows with a divine blue energy. She declares that those who disobey the will of God will be punished accordingly. The knight's armor cracks and shatters from the impact. She stands over his defeated form, her power absolute. a final warning to anyone who dares get in her way. The governor falls to his knees, completely broken. The syndicate boss is dragged away, screaming in defiance. The paladin thanks Aidos for his help. As he senses her immense sacred power, he realizes she must be the apprentice of a legendary saint, a warrior famous for hunting down heretics. She turns back to Aidos, addressing him by name. She's grateful for his help in taking down a Yulin officer. As a reward, the church will overlook his violent tendencies. Aidos just smiles, feigning ignorance, but she sees right through his entire plan. He quickly apologizes, explaining the personal stakes. The news seems to catch her off guard. Her expression softens with understanding. She agrees to let the matter go, given the circumstances. She also mentions the bounty on the mage's head, a cool 1,000 gold, enough to buy a small castle, but Aidos has something else in mind. Victor, meanwhile, is having a complete meltdown. He asks for one of the church's mana cultivation techniques. The paladin is confused by his strange request, but Aidos knows his own limits all too well. He only won that last fight because of his authority. But to defeat the enemies of his future, and reach an even higher level of power, he needs a technique far beyond what he currently knows. He explains he's only ever learned the basics, much to her shock. She senses his aura, realizing his talent is immense. She considers his skill and his unwavering resolve. An idea begins to form in her mind. She offers him a chance to become a paladin. Talk about a job offer you can't refuse. Aidos can only stare at the unexpected proposal, and his answer is a firm, resounding no. The paladin can't believe he'd refuse such an honor. She explains that becoming a paladin is a divine calling, but Aidos has zero religious faith, and even less interest in being the church's lapdog. He thinks for a moment, trying to find the right words. He claims he's not yet worthy of receiving God's love, and that he must first travel the world as a humble devotee. Victor is clearly not buying this act, but the paladin seems to be completely taken in. She grabs his hands, moved by his holy words. It actually worked. She agrees to his request for the mana technique, extending an open invitation he has no intention of ever accepting. She then introduces herself as Agnes, the first apprentice of the Azure Flame. Aidos recognizes the title, confirming his suspicions. With the pleasantries over, he asks if he can finish his business here, which brings him back to the syndicate boss, Cedric. He lifts the man into the air with a single hand. The boss tries to threaten him, but it's a little late for that. He lands a solid blow, though it's cushioned by the man's gut. The boss can only curse as Aidos prepares another strike. He brings his heel down with satisfying force, sending the man's face straight into the dirt. Aidos lets out a quiet sigh of relief. He declares that he finally feels satisfied. Guess that's one way to handle stress. Victor nervously asks if the nightmare is finally over. Aidos just gives him a confident smile. Meanwhile, at the grand estate of the Lion Bloom family, Erwin's father, Holland, bursts into his son's room. He finds the young noble hiding in his bed, completely traumatized. The boy who challenged Aidos can only tremble in fear, but it's not his father who has come to see him. Holland demands to know what happened to his son. Erwin stammers that he was threatened with a fork. His father is furious, demanding to know who dared to do this. One of the guards nervously prepares to answer. He names Damien of House Haxon. The rage in the room is palpable. A nearby vase begins to tremble. Before shattering from the sheer force of Holland's anger, he gives a simple, chilling command. To drag Aidos here like a dog. Looks like someone's holding a grudge. But back at the Haxon estate, a new guest has arrived. The paladin Agnes has come for a visit. Aidos' parents can only offer a nervous welcome. His father fumes, wondering why his son brought a fanatic home. Agnes explains she'll be staying for the investigation. She offers a hefty bag of gold for their troubles. Suddenly, hospitality is their middle name. The parents are all too happy to accommodate their new guest. Aidos realizes her other request was a bit more literal than he'd hoped. She asks if she can learn about something besides the case. Specifically, she wants to know more about him. His parents can only watch, completely frozen. They immediately assume the wrong thing, much to Aidos' dismay. Later, Agnes presents him with the mana cultivation manuals. He's surprised to find two, but she explains one is a matching sword technique. He recognizes them as powerful techniques he's never seen before. She admits they were difficult to acquire due to opposition in the church, but her master believes Aidos is a chosen one they desperately need. She grabs his hand, once again asking him to become a paladin, but Aidos gently pulls his hand away. He apologizes, leaving her completely heartbroken. She says any more would be rude, but leaves the offer on the table if he ever changes his mind. Aidos watches her go, realizing her fanaticism is on another level. Meanwhile, in the Dark Mage's former hideout, two of the church's investigators are hard at work. One of them finds the whole situation a bit suspicious. He reminds his partner that Ajito was a high-ranking Yulan member, questioning how a simple country noble could have defeated him. The other admits he has his own doubts, but they decide to focus on the investigation for now. A voice from the shadows tells them to trust Damien Haxon. Agnes appears, assuring them that Eidos did not lie. She reminds them of his simple explanation, much to their confusion. A flashback to Eidos' very unhelpful debriefing. Yeah, that cleared things up. The investigator can't believe that was the real story. Agnes admits that even she had her doubts at first, so she decided to observe him from a distance. She watched as he single-handedly took down an entire syndicate. But the most shocking part of his display was when he deflected a fireball with his sword. The two investigators can only stare in disbelief. Agnes explains that a true swordmaster can cut through anything, even magic. She clarifies that while he's not a swordmaster, he's an extraordinary warrior. She reveals her true motive for coming here: to recruit Eidos as a powerful asset for the church. She tells her men to put their doubts aside and get back to work. They quickly agree, their questions answered. Elsewhere, a new threat is on the move. A group of knights rides across the countryside. They carry the banner of the Lion Bloom family. Looks like payback is coming. Their leader tells his men to quiet down. This is Garrick, an official knight of the Lion Bloom family. He spots their destination in the distance, the Haxon estate. His subordinate confirms their target. As Garrick recalls their simple mission, arrest Damien Haxon, he scoffs, saying that alone won't be enough to make up for the humiliation his master suffered. As they ride, they pass an old man on the road. The man can only watch as the knights approach. One of them calls out, stopping him in his tracks. The old man asks who they are, his voice trembling. Garrick asks if he's a resident of the Haxon estate, and then strikes the old man without warning, a brutal blow that sends him to the ground. He explains that the man dared not to bow after seeing the Lion Bloom family crest. Guess they take their branding very seriously. His men point out that the old man was blind, but Garrick just grins, saying he has an idea, a plan to drag Eidos out of his home and make an example of him and his family. Their orders are simple: eliminate everyone in sight. Elsewhere, the church investigators finish their work. Agnes tells them they've done a great job, but one of them suddenly spots something in the distance. It's Eidos, meditating on a rock surrounded by a powerful aura. He's already begun practicing the new mana technique. The energy swirls around him with incredible force. Agnes can only stare, completely stunned by the display. She knows the technique allows one to absorb mana, but to master it in just a few hours is unheard of. Eidos opens his eyes, his training complete. Agnes and her men can only stare in awe. She rushes over, asking if he's finished investigating. He just smiles, saying he's made a little progress. He thinks to himself that the cultivation method was incredibly useful. It gathers mana far faster than any other technique. Agnes looks at him with a strange, sparkly admiration. She invites him back for dinner, much to his confusion. Guess she's not subtle. But his senses suddenly flare up. He tells her that uninvited guests have arrived. He has urgent business to attend to, and dashes off with incredible speed. Agnes and her men are stunned by his quick departure. She realizes he's moving with perfect mana control, and wonders just how powerful this man truly is. Meanwhile, the Lion Bloom Knights attack the estate's servants. Their leader, Garrick, strikes down an unarmed man. He stands over his victim with a smug grin. He demands they bring him Damien Haxon, but Victor stands in their way, refusing to betray his master. The commotion brings Eidos' father running. One of the knights orders him to halt. The Viscount confronts the intruders head-on. He rushes to Victor's side, checking on the boy. He demands to know why knights are attacking civilians, but Garrick says this is nothing compared to what his son did. He formally demands they hand over Damien Haxon. The father fumes, calling their actions barbaric. Garrick just gives a wicked smile, knowing they'll destroy the estate either way. The Viscount grits his teeth, realizing he's trapped, but his father stands firm, refusing to hand over his son. Garrick warns him that he'll regret that decision. He orders his men to destroy everything until Eidos appears. The Viscount can only scream in rage at the injustice. He demands to know if they've lost their minds. But a dark presence suddenly descends upon the courtyard. Garrick freezes, wondering when he appeared. Eidos walks forward, his aura radiating pure menace. The knight is stunned by the immense pressure. He finds himself completely unable to move. Eidos rushes to his father's side, checking on him and Victor. He looks down at the unconscious servant, his eyes cold. He tells the knights they should consider themselves lucky, because if Victor had died, he would have killed them all. Garrick scoffs, calling him a madman who got lucky in one duel. Eidos just stares back, completely unfazed. The knight orders his men to break his legs. Customer service is clearly not their priority. Eidos just closes his eyes, ready for the fight. He stops the first blade with his bare hands. He smirks, saying this is the perfect chance to test his new power. He channels a surge of mana into his fist and delivers a devastating blow, happy to have some test subjects. The other knight watches his partner go flying. He turns to face Eidos, his expression a mask of rage, and is immediately sent flying by a powerful kick. Garrett can only watch from his horse, completely stunned. Victor slowly begins to wake up, calling out to his master. Eidos stands over the defeated knights, asking if he's all right. The young servant reaches out a trembling hand and gives his master a weak but determined thumbs up. Eidos just smirks, finding this whole situation rather amusing. Garrett takes a heavy step forward, surprised that Eidos wasn't intimidated by Erwin's name. He looks at his fallen men, wondering how a mere noble has such skill. Eidos tells him he has no need to know. The knight's eyes narrow as a new theory forms. He looks up, convinced he's figured it all out. He points, accusing Eidos of not being the real Damien Haxon. The Viscount can only stare, completely baffled. Eidos asks what on earth he's talking about. The knight screams at him not to lie. He rants about this being a trap set by a rival family, calling Eidos an imposter hired to ruin their name. This guy's imagination is working overtime. Eidos just sighs, realizing his opponent is even dumber than he looks. Garrick's eyes burn with rage as he prepares to attack. He tightens his grip on his massive sword. One of the defeated knights can only watch in terror. But Victor and the Viscount cheer for their young master. Garrick clenches his fist, gathering his power. He charges forward, ready to end this farce. He believes his opponent's luck has finally run out. He waits for Eidos to come within range, ready to strike in the blink of an eye. His blade glows with a menacing red aura. He swings his sword with all his might, vowing to split him in half. But Eidos blocks the powerful blow with ease. He grins, glad they sent a proper knight this time. Garrick can't believe his attack was parried. He dismisses it as a fluke and prepares to strike again. Garrick unleashes a furious flurry of slashes, but Eidos dodges every single one with ease. The knight can't believe his eyes. Eidos tells him it's his turn now, delivering a powerful blow to his jaw. The impact sends a shockwave through the air. Garrick realizes he can't even see his opponent's movements. Eidos follows up with another strike, and then a devastating kick to the head. The knight is sent tumbling across the courtyard. He lands in a heap, completely overwhelmed. Eidos declares that one was for Victor. Guess he's a fan of poetic justice. Garrick can only tremble in fear and disbelief. He lets out a furious roar and charges again. But Eidos remains completely unfazed. The knight unleashes his ultimate technique, a storm of red energy claws hurtling forward. But Eidos just calls the display noisy. He meets the attack with the tip of his own blade, shattering the knight's technique completely. The sword slices past his shoulder, and Eidos sends him flying into the air. The knight can only scream in agony. He's slammed back down into the dirt with incredible force. His father and Victor can only watch in awe. The young servant cheers, knowing the fight is over. Eidos looks down at the defeated knight. Garrick clutches his arm, crying out in pain. Eidos presses the blade against his throat. The knight begs for his life, and Eidos reminds him exactly who he is. He tells the knight it's a little late for that. After all, he messed with his family and hurt his servant. The knight can only stammer out a desperate apology. But Eidos asks if he knows who he should really be apologizing to. He turns his back, leaving the man to his fate, as Victor and his father loom over him, ready for a little payback. The Lion Bloom Knights can only kneel in defeat. Victor asks if he can get a few more hits in, but Eidos tells him to stop. He then suggests taking a limb instead, which doesn't help the knight's nerves. His father steps in, telling him that's enough. Garrick immediately turns his pleas to the Viscount. But his father is furious, saying an apology won't fix this. If Eidos hadn't been there, their entire family would have been destroyed. The knight can only beg for mercy, slamming his head on the ground. The Viscount looks down, his expression unreadable. Eidos closes his eyes, weighing his options. He and his father share a silent understanding. Eidos admits he never actually intended to kill them. He knows that would completely shatter their relationship with the Lion Bloom family. And with his family to think about, he can't be reckless. But letting them go means they'll just be back for revenge. A voice suddenly calls out his name. It's the paladin Agnes, running toward the commotion. Eidos' eyes widen in surprise. He realizes she might be the perfect solution to his problem. Agnes arrives, taking in the scene with a thoughtful expression. She offers to help, saying she has an idea. Thanks to his family, the church took down a high-ranking Yulan member, which means they can officially designate House Haxon as an ally. She grabs his hands, asking him to accept, and our boy can only agree. Eidos just smirks, his plan working perfectly. His father and brother can only watch from the side. as Eidos asks if everyone heard the good news. He tells the knight to deliver a message to his masters. House Haxon is now under the church's protection, and any further aggression will be met with holy wrath. The knights flee, with Victor giving them a very enthusiastic send-off. He wonders if the threat is truly over, but his father knows they need to have a family meeting. Later that day, the family gathers in the parlor. The topic of discussion is a serious one: how to handle their feud with the Lionbloom family. Abel questions why it's even a problem anymore, but his father explains the church won't get too involved. Their influence extends far beyond simple military might. They could crush a family like theirs in countless ways. Their only options are to pay them off or find another ally. But Agnes steps forward with another solution. Eidos could simply become a paladin himself. Talk about a career change. His answer is a simple, resounding no. With that option off the table, the mood darkens. But Abel suddenly slams his hands on the table. He can't believe they'd give up on such an easy fix. He tells his brother to just do it and solve all their problems. But their father slams the table, silencing him. He tells his younger son to sit down and to do it now. The tension in the room is thicker than ever. Their father admits that while Eidos started the fight, Erwin's intentions toward Louise were far from honorable. He admits Eidos was only protecting his sister in his place. His father addresses him by his full name. He places a hand on Eidos' shoulder and tells him he did well today. Eidos is stunned by the unexpected praise. He looks down, saying it was his duty. His father vows to handle the rest from here, but a servant suddenly interrupts the family meeting. He announces a visitor from the powerful House Gold Pixie. The servant nervously explains the reason for their visit. Eidos had used the family's land as collateral for a loan. Looks like past mistakes are on a tight schedule. His father's prideful expression quickly turns to rage. He grabs his son, his patience finally snapping. His furious shouts echo from the manor. A man with a long braid removes his hat. Eidos vaguely recognizes the unwelcome guest. The man introduces himself as a manager from Dash and Cash. He remembers being sweet-talked into the terrible deal. Eidos asks how much he owes them. The man cheerfully informs him the total is 300 gold. He panics, knowing his family can't possibly pay. He imagines them all being thrown out onto the streets. The manager reminds him that the land is now forfeit. He claims his hands are tied by Duke Gold Pixie himself. He asks Eidos to please bring the money, or admit that he doesn't have it. Eidos quietly admits he can't pay the debt. The manager feigns a moment of surprise, before his face twists into a wicked grin. He makes himself comfortable on their couch, and mockingly tells him he shouldn't have borrowed it. He snaps his fingers, dismissing the problem, and says he'll just have to collect it his own way. He admits he knew Eidos couldn't pay, and that he loves seeing arrogant nobles grovel. He wonders what kind of face Eidos will make. The thought alone sends a shiver down his spine. This guy has some issues. Meanwhile, Eidos' father lets out a heavy sigh. The entire family is on edge, pacing the room. His mother and sister try to calm everyone down. But his father and brother can't stop panicking. His mother insists they should trust Eidos to handle it. But his father argues that swordsmanship is not the same as negotiation. Back in the parlor, Eidos proves him right. The manager is sent flying from the impact. Eidos holds up the other thug, worried about the wall. The second thug draws his sword, ready to fight. Eidos' hand begins to glow with a familiar energy. He delivers a powerful palm strike to the man's throat. He lifts the thug into the air and gives a twisted smile, calling it self-defense. The manager can only watch in absolute terror. Eidos calmly walks toward him. He looms over the terrified man and tells him to relax, which is probably not helping. He explains he can't pay the money right now and offers to repay the debt in a different way. The manager can only agree, sweating profusely. The next day, the sun shines on the Haxon estate. Abel approaches his father, claiming to be heartbroken. He claims justice was defeated by violence. Eidos says goodbye to his mother and sister. As Abel continues his dramatic performance in the background, his father reluctantly agreed to the plan, but he's still worried. Agnes appears sad to see him leaving so soon. Eidos thanks her for all of her help. She explains her investigation is almost over as well, and offers him a final holy blessing for his journey. She asks one last time if he'll change his mind, but he shuts her down instantly. With the goodbyes over, Victor announces the carriage is ready. The door opens to reveal a very familiar face. Eidos and Victor step inside, greeted by the nervous manager. The man promises to make their journey as comfortable as possible. Funny how a little negotiation can change a man. Eidos approves of his new attitude, suggesting lobster for lunch. He tells Victor it's time to go. The young servant cheers, ready for the adventure. The horses rear up, ready to depart, and the carriage wheels begin to turn. Eidos gives a confident, knowing smirk. Their destination, the powerful House Gold Pixie. The carriage pulls to a stop and the three of them step out. They stand before the massive, opulent Gold Pixie estate. Eidos thanks the manager, who says the Duke is expecting him. But inside, the man seethes, remembering how he was treated like a servant. He wishes Eidos luck, secretly hoping he fails miserably. Eidos tells Victor he'll be back soon. He walks into the grand hall, where a voice calls out his name. The head of the family, Duke Adam Gold Pixie, identifies him. Eidos confirms his identity, thinking all these nobles are the same. He stands before the Duke and asks why he was summoned. He explains he can't pay with money, but offers to defeat the Lion Blooms to settle his debt. Now that's what I call a payment plan. The Duke and his guard knight are taken aback. The other knights in the room can only murmur in disbelief. The guard knight, Igaol, realizes Eidos must have heard the news. Our boy's eyes narrow. He knows all about the rumors. A gold mine was recently discovered on their shared border, and the two rival families plan to settle ownership with a duel. But Eidos already knows how this story ends. In his past life, the Lion Blooms won an overwhelming victory. They used the gold to expand their power, while the Gold Pixies faded. Eidos realizes that if he helps the Duke win this time, he can repay his debt and weaken his enemies in one move. Talk about efficiency. The Duke asks if the rumors about his recent victories are true. Eidos confirms that the stories are very, very real. The Duke admits the offer is tempting as he needs a champion, but one of his knights argues that Eidos isn't fit to fight the eldest Lion Bloom. The Duke asks if he can truly defeat a known genius. Eidos confidently says he's just as skilled, but a knight interrupts. Ernst Howitz tells the Duke not to trust the exaggerated rumors. He insists that a Miss Chelsea will bring a better candidate. She's been gone for a month, searching for the perfect warrior. The Duke and his men seem to have complete faith in her. The knights all stand together, sure of their choice. Eidos is clearly not impressed by their lack of faith. The Duke asks for his opinion, testing his reaction. Eidos tells them they are all gravely mistaken. He declares that he is their only chance of winning the duel. He offers to prove it by blocking the knight's ultimate attack. Eidos gives a wicked grin, ready to put his money where his mouth is. The knight Ernst Howitz asks for permission to teach Eidos a lesson. The Duke finds this amusing and gladly permits the duel. And just like that, the two warriors face off in the grand courtyard. Victor panics, wondering how a negotiation turned into a fight. Eidos just tells him that things got a little out of hand. The Duke gives the command, and Howitz tightens his grip. He offers to forgive Eidos if he gets on his knees and begs. But our boy just yawns, telling him to get on with it already. A blue aura begins to swirl around Eidos' hand. The knight unleashes his ultimate attack, just as requested. Eidos wonders if maybe he pushed the guy a little too hard. Howitz lunges forward, vowing to put a hole in his face. A powerful blast of energy shoots from the tip of his spear. The attack hurtles forward with incredible speed and force, but Eidos calmly brings his sword up to meet the blow. He knows exactly where the attack is aimed. He meets the strike head-on, the impact sending out a shockwave. Their powers collide in a brilliant flash of blue light. The very ground beneath them begins to crack and shatter. A confident grin spreads across Eidos' face. The knight thinks he's fallen right into his trap. A shadowy attack suddenly pierces through Eidos' chest. Victor and the Duke can only watch in absolute horror. But Eidos plants his foot, refusing to fall. He stands completely unfazed by the surprise attack. Howitz can't believe he managed to withstand the blow. The Duke and his guard knight watch with grim expressions. Eidos just smirks, declaring the position is now his, before immediately coughing up blood and collapsing into Victor's arms. The young servant panics, but Eidos just complains that it hurts. Looks like he's not quite invincible yet. The Duke applauds, impressed by Eidos' incredible feat. He admits he had his doubts, but Eidos is the real deal. He officially declares Damien Haxon as his representative. Howitz tries to protest the decision, but the Duke silences him with a single menacing glare. Eidos stands up, trying to play off the serious injury. Howitz can only tremble, wondering how he lost. Eidos realizes his opponent isn't untalented, just a bad match for him. He knows his own level is far beyond what he's showing, but he had to act like a low-class fighter to even get the duel. Talk about method acting. He remembers the moment the attack almost connected. If he hadn't used his mana to block at the last second, it would have been fatal. The Duke approaches, his expression unreadable. He offers a gift to help with the internal injuries, placing a glowing ring on Eidos' finger. Eidos is stunned, recognizing it as a subspace magic tool. The Duke pulls a small ornate box from the portal. He opens it, revealing a gift for his new champion. Inside are several golden pills, a rare alchemical object. The Duke explains they're normally used for training, but are also effective for healing internal damage. He looks forward to seeing what Eidos can do. Eidos accepts with a confident smile. The next day, the sun shines on the Gold Pixie estate. Eidos is already in the training hall, stretching his muscles. He notes the supplement worked wonders, healing him overnight. He looks over the impressive array of training equipment. He smiles, ready to get back to his old routine. But a voice suddenly asks if he's Damien Haxon. A new challenger appears, standing on a higher platform to assert dominance. He's joined by 3 other knights, who declare they're here for the duel. Their leader explains they were away training yesterday, and boasts that if they'd been there, the outcome would have been very different. He reminds Eidos that the fate of the duchy is on the line, and tells him to leave so they can get back to their training. Eidos decides this is a perfect chance to see what they're made of. The knights begin their sparring session with a loud cry. The leader, Pable, takes a defensive stance, while his opponent leaps into the air with a secret move. Their wooden swords clash in the center of the training hall. The two are locked in a fierce struggle, a long-standing rivalry between them. Pable seems to be losing ground, pushed back by his opponent's strength, but his eyes narrow with determination. He uses his opponent's momentum to flip him over his shoulder. The other knight can only watch in shock as the tables turn. Pable brings his sword down in a decisive blow. His opponent praises his skill, impressed by the move. Pable just grins, joking that he blocked the attack with his forehead. Yeah, that's one way to put it. The two bow, acknowledging each other's improvement. The third, larger knight steps up, eager for his turn. The 3 huddle together, their spirits high. They believe their training will lead them to victory. They raise their swords in a unified cheer. Their faces contort in a display of pure, unhinged motivation. Eidos and Victor can only watch the bizarre spectacle. Victor asks what's wrong, but Eidos already knows the answer. He tells his servant that they are completely screwed, because he has absolutely no faith in winning with these idiots. From his seat, the Duke just laughs at the whole display. He tells his guard knight he's not bothered, though Igaol seems to know better. Eidos politely declines the Duke's offer to train with the others. The Duke just laughs, finding the young man quite interesting. He turns to his guard knight, asking for his opinion on Eidos. Igaol admits he's an exceptional warrior, able to block a powerful strike with split-second mana control. But when asked about their odds in the duel, he hesitates. He explains that since it's a best-of-3 match, Eidos' skill alone won't guarantee their victory. The Duke agrees. Their other knights need to be just as capable. Igaol assures him a mid-class knight is in charge of their training, so he believes there's nothing to worry about. Famous last words. The next day, under the bright sun, Eidos realizes he has a very big, very unexpected problem. He watches the other knights, seeing nothing but flash and no substance. With their current level of skill, he knows they're doomed to lose. He lets out a quiet sigh, considering his options. It seems he has no choice but to step in himself. He calls out to the 3 punks in the training yard. They're immediately offended as Eidos suggests a sparring match. The leader, Pable, smirks, impressed by his opponent's guts. He agrees to the challenge, ready to be the first to fight. But Eidos clarifies that he doesn't want to fight just one of them. He wants all 3 of them to come at him at once. The knights can only stare, stunned by his arrogance. Their shock quickly turns to pure, unadulterated rage. They agree to his terms, deciding a beating is the only cure. The 3 of them lunge forward with furious cries, but Eidos remains completely still as their fists close in. A sudden flash of light and the knights are left confused. Pable finds himself on the ground, wondering what just happened. He calmly watches as a fist flies toward his face. The knight's expression twists in shock as his attack is stopped. Eidos' hand moves in a blur, deflecting all 3 of their attacks at once. The knights are sent sprawling across the floor. Their leader gets up, his eyes burning with rage. He lunges forward with another powerful strike, but Eidos is already there, his own fist connecting first. He follows up with a devastating kick to the man's side. His eyes narrow, the fight already over. The knights can only wonder how he overwhelmed all 3 of them. Eidos just smirks, saying he didn't even break a sweat. Guess their warm-up was his cool down. He asks the 3 of them who was in charge of their training. Pable nervously explains they were taught by a mid-class knight. Eidos realizes that explains their lackluster performance. He tells them from now on, they'll be sparring with him daily. Pable worries their trainer will notice something is wrong, but Eidos just gives a wicked grin, promising they won't have a scratch. The knights realize he's right. They're completely unharmed. He explains he learned a very specific way to handle people, a technique from a man known as the character corrector. His method of reform was unconventional, to say the least. He would beat criminals for an hour straight, and if that didn't work, he'd just keep going. Talk about a dedicated HR department. But eventually he began to feel pity for his victims. He wondered how to inflict pain without causing lasting harm, and so he mastered a technique called the traceless strike, a secret art that he just used on them. He asks if they finally understand how worthless they are, but he tells them not to worry. They have 1 month to improve. He promises to turn these worthless bugs into useful ones. The 3 knights can only kneel in absolute terror. As Aidos announces training is back on, Victor worries about his plans. But the Duke's attendant suddenly comes running. He explains that his grace is looking for Aidos. Elsewhere, a confident smile graces a woman's lips. A woman named Chelsea has finally returned. The Duke looks on as she greets her father. Chelsea Goldpixie, the Duke's eldest daughter, announces her return. She kneels before him, a large warrior by her side. The knight Howitz welcomes her back with a smile. The Duke asks if she found a champion for their duel. She gives a wicked grin, confirming that she did. The massive warrior behind her stands up. He introduces himself as Guillermo Blackwing, the wild beast. The other knights recognize the name of the famous mercenary. They recall his brutal reputation from the Aclaran Kingdom's war. It's said that no low-class knight is capable of defeating him. The Duke acknowledges that he's earned his title. Chelsea explains that Guillermo has sworn his loyalty to her. She confidently declares he can defeat Michael Lionbloom. The other knights agree, believing he's already reached perfection. The Duke admits this is good news, but also a difficult situation. Chelsea asks what he means, so he decides to introduce someone. He explains he's already chosen a representative for the duel, and Aidos steps into the room, looking very confident. Chelsea's eyes narrow, her expression turning cold. She reminds her father she asked him to wait, but he never agreed. She smiles, suggesting he simply change the representative. The Duke closes his eyes, saying he'll have to think about it. Chelsea argues that her father shouldn't even consider Aidos. She insists her champion is the obvious choice over this nobody. The mercenary, Guillermo, just smirks with confidence. But Aidos' eyes narrow, a flicker of recognition in them. The Duke, however, isn't so quick to dismiss him. He reminds his daughter that Aidos blocked Howitz's ultimate attack. Chelsea just scoffs, accusing her father of being biased. The Duke's expression darkens at her disrespect. She quickly apologizes, blaming her fatigue from the journey. Aidos watches them, sensing the deep rift in their family. The Duke tries to end the argument for now, but Guillermo suddenly bursts into a fit of laughter. He tells the Duke there's no need for words, an idea that clearly doesn't impress the room. He suggests the strongest man should be the representative. Chelsea immediately scolds him for his outburst, but the Duke admits the mercenary isn't wrong. He turns to Aidos, testing him once again. Aidos agrees that the strongest should fight, but says a real fight isn't necessary. He wants to check something for himself. The mercenary's eyes narrow, intrigued by the challenge. He warns Aidos not to cry if he loses an arm. Aidos just smiles, promising to be gentle. The mercenary's friendly demeanor vanishes instantly. He lunges forward, his eyes glowing with red energy. A surge of pure power radiates from his body, but Aidos uses his momentum against him, slamming the massive warrior into the floor. The Duke and his knight can only stare in disbelief. The knight Howitz can only stare in utter shock. Chelsea is left speechless by the sudden turn of events. But the Duke is nothing short of amazed. He realizes Guillermo made the first move, but Aidos used the mercenary's own strength against him, throwing him to the floor with impossible ease. He's not just strong, he's incredibly skilled. The defeated mercenary can only seethe with rage. He gets to his feet, furious at the humiliation. But Aidos just smirks, saying he held back. Guess he's a fan of constructive criticism. Guillermo's rage boils over, vowing to tear him apart. He charges forward, his axes glowing with a purple aura. Chelsea can only cry out his name in alarm. The mercenary brings his weapons down with a furious roar. He unleashes a powerful two-pronged attack, vowing to crush Aidos' skull completely. But a sudden flash of green energy stops him cold. Guillermo's eyes widen in disbelief. The Duke's guard knight, Igaol, has intervened. He scolds the mercenary for drawing his weapon in front of the Duke. His eyes burn with a cold, menacing threat. Guillermo is frozen in place by the immense pressure. Aidos notes his opponent's powerful aura. The guard knight agrees to let it go, but only for Chelsea's sake. He gives a final warning that there will be no second chances. The mercenary can only kneel, completely defeated. The Duke clasps his hands, his decision made. He steps forward, commenting on the private commotion, and declares that Aidos will remain the representative. But Howitz immediately protests, calling the fight unfair. Howitz argues that Guillermo is simply exhausted from his journey, and that a fist fight proves nothing about a warrior who uses weapons. Chelsea agrees, demanding a proper duel to settle the matter. But the Duke tells his daughter to stop forcing the issue. Chelsea screams back at her father, refusing to be silenced. The Duke slams his desk, yelling at her to stop parading her incompetence. His daughter can only stare, completely stunned by his rage. She turns away, admitting she was out of line. Howitz can only watch the family drama unfold. But Aidos raises a hand, asking if he can say something. He calmly gets everyone's attention and offers to settle this with a duel against Guillermo. Chelsea looks over, surprised by the sudden offer. The Duke considers the proposal, his expression unreadable. Later, Victor questions why his master is always looking for trouble. A question Victor asks himself about 10 times a day. Aidos just looks up at a nearby sign. He asks if this is the smithy the Duke mentioned. He recalls the Duke offering to replace his broken sword. Inside, a man with a headband looks up from his work. Victor explains they're here on the Duke's orders to pick up a sword. The smith leads them further into the workshop. Victor is stunned by the incredible collection of weapons. Aidos jokes about getting him one, but his eyes are already searching. His gaze lands on something specific, a unique blade sitting in a display case. The smith notes his interest in the unusual sword. He explains it was a custom order for a knight who left unexpectedly. Aidos asks if it was made with a special steel, shocking the smith. He recognizes the design from a legendary sword musician. He declares he'll take this one, much to the smith's surprise. He asks for the sword's name, feeling its unique energy. The smith thinks for a moment. Recalling its original owner called it the 1,000-mile sword. Aidos sheathes his new weapon. He gives it a final, satisfying grip. But a voice calls out, asking if he's found what he needs. A maid flanked by 2 guards gives a polite curtsy. She introduces herself as Rebecca, a servant of Lady Chelsea. She explains that her lady has requested a meeting. Rebecca hints that Chelsea has more to offer than he thinks. Aidos realizes this is an attempt to appease him, but decides to play along. He agrees to the meeting, telling her to lead the way. She brings him to an upscale restaurant owned by Chelsea, a place so exclusive only nobles can get a reservation. And today, she's cleared the entire place just for him. Guess someone's trying to make an impression. The maid stops before a private room. She tells him that Lady Chelsea is waiting inside. Aidos peeks in, wondering what this is all about. But a strange scent suddenly catches his attention. Inside, Chelsea pours a glass of wine, telling him he's late. She sits alone, surrounded by a strange purple aura. She greets him by name with a confident, knowing smile. Aidos takes a seat and asks why she summoned him. His eyes narrow, already tired of the games. He tells her to get straight to the point. Chelsea just smirks, saying she has one simple condition. She wants him to step down as the representative. He asks if she doesn't trust her own champion, but she scoffs at the idea. She claims she's just trying to preserve her strength for the real duel. After all, it would be a shame if he got hurt in a pointless fight. Aidos asks what he has to gain from her offer. She scoffs, assuming he only wants money and fame. Aidos calls her arrogant for judging him so carelessly. He points out her father could offer the same, but she hints at her future power. She leans over an hourglass, confident in her influence. Her eyes glow with a strange, persuasive light. She flips the timer, telling him to go inform the Duke. The sands of time begin to fall. A strange purple energy fills the entire room. Aidos is enveloped by the spell, seemingly under its control, but he just smirks, giving her a firm no. Guess her charm wasn't that charming. Chelsea is stunned, realizing her plan has failed. Aidos grins, knowing she's surprised he resisted her charm fragrance. A type of dark magic that manipulates its victims with false affection. But thanks to his past life, he sensed the trap before he even entered. He knew exactly what he was walking into. He explains that at this concentration, anyone would become a slave. But his authority of greed absorbed the magic completely. He stands, asking what she meant about things not going to plan. She demands to know why he's rejecting her generous offer. Aidos turns his back, saying what he wants is not something she can give. She screams, asking what could be so important. He quietly answers, his family's happiness. Chelsea is left completely speechless by his answer. He tells her to have Guillermo prepare for their duel. She bites her lip, a new understanding dawning on her. She realizes just how important his family is to him. So she decides to change her tactics from bribery to blackmail, threatening to send someone to completely crush House Haxon. Her eyes burn with rage, making her intentions perfectly clear. But Aidos' rage explodes, and he slams her down onto the table. He grabs her by the throat, his grip tightening. He lifts her into the air, her threats turning to desperate pleas. The commotion brings her personal guards rushing into the room. They charge forward, furious at the sight of their lady in danger. Aidos releases his grip, letting her fall back. He draws his new blade with a flash of steel. His eyes glow as he moves in a blur, disarming both guards with a single elegant motion. The lead guard can only stare, a thin red line on his neck. Aidos turns his back, leaving them kneeling in defeat. He tells them the cut is shallow, they'll live. He turns his cold gaze back to Chelsea Gold Pixie. He admits he wants to end her, but that would be too merciful. Guess he's not a fan of the easy way out. He walks away, telling her to look forward to her punishment. He gives a final chilling smile, promising her a terrible future. Chelsea is left trembling, a mix of fear and pure hatred in her eyes. He leaves the room without a second glance. Just then, her maid Rebecca rushes in. She asks if her lady is all right, but Chelsea's face is a mask of pure rage as she vows to kill him. She screams for someone named Mustang Fury. A large man with a very unfortunate mustache appears, answering the call. She demands to know why her charm failed, but he has no answers. She strikes him across the face, calling him a fool. She asks for Guillermo, but he's out drinking to blow off steam. Chelsea fumes, realizing her champion is at a bar the night before the duel. The man assures her Guillermo is a masterpiece of Yulan who can't lose. He promises that their organization will deliver the duchy to her. Chelsea gives a cold warning. Keep that promise or he'll be the first to die. Eidos stands on the roof, looking out over the estate. His expression is cold, his mind racing. Later that night, the manor is quiet. Victor has fallen asleep, clutching a pile of weapons. Eidos sits alone, examining his new sword. He thinks back on the day's events, a dark realization dawning. He now knows Chelsea is connected to the dark mages, and so is Guillermo. He flicks the blade, his resolve hardening. A powerful blue aura begins to swirl around him. The surge of energy startles Victor awake. Eidos decides it's better to show the Duke his proof tomorrow. The next day, a heavy boot steps into the courtyard. The mercenary Guillermo Blackwing makes his grand entrance. The other knights can only stare at his incredible physique. The three trainees watch from the side, wondering who will win. Pabel admits that based on reputation, Guillermo has the advantage. The other two are thrilled, hoping this means they're free from Eidos. They recall his training, which felt more like a one-sided beating. Guess they weren't fans of his teaching style. Pabel admits he wants Eidos to lose, but seems conflicted. But Victor cheers loudly for his master to win. The two combatants face each other across the courtyard. They stand ready, the tension palpable. Guillermo gives a confident grin, certain of his victory. Eidos just stretches, complaining about a stiff shoulder. A voice announces that he's the one who's late. The Duke takes his seat, declaring the winner will be his champion. He glances at his daughter, hoping she'll accept the outcome. Chelsea just smirks, certain that Guillermo will win the duel. The Duke holds up a white cloth, a smile on his face. He throws it into the air, officially beginning the duel. Guillermo raises his twin axes, their blades glowing with dark energy. He taunts Eidos, saying this duel was his final mistake. With a tight grip, he promises to show him exactly why. He lunges forward with a furious roar, living up to his wild beast title. But Eidos stands his ground, ready to meet the attack. He just flicks his finger, unleashing a ripple of pure mana. The invisible force flies through the air. Guillermo's charge is stopped dead in its tracks. He's sent flying backward across the courtyard. He digs his axes into the stone, struggling to regain his footing. He looks up, demanding to know what just happened. Guess he's not used to being the one on defense. Chelsea and her maid can only watch in complete shock. The Duke calls it an unusual technique, while Igao looks on with intrigue. The mercenary screams, accusing Eidos of using some kind of sorcery. But our boy just stands there, surrounded by waves of blue energy. Another invisible blow slams into Guillermo's side. He looks down, a dark bruise already forming on his arm. Before he can react, a second strike hits him square in the face. The impact sends his head snapping back. He stumbles forward, spitting blood as his axes fall to the ground. He glares at Eidos, his rage boiling over. Eidos raises his sword, declaring the time for games is over. The 1,000-mile sword glows with an immense blue light. He unleashes a massive wave of pure energy. The mercenary can only scream as the attack engulfs him completely. The entire audience is left speechless by the incredible display. Guillermo gags, his body convulsing from the blow, and suddenly vomits a stream of black, corrupted energy. Well, that's one way to lose your lunch. The dark substance pools on the ground before him. The Duke asks what's happening as Igao realizes the terrible truth. Chelsea can only stare in absolute disbelief as Guillermo coughs up a foul, dark substance. His body convulses, corrupted by the dark energy within. Eidos stands over him, his suspicions confirmed. He declares the mercenary is nothing but a fake knight. The Duke and his guard knight are left completely speechless. Even Victor and the trainees can't believe what they're seeing. Eidos holds his sword, ready to explain. He reveals Guillermo used dark magic to enhance his abilities. Guess that explains the Wild Beast title. The other nobles panic at the mere mention of such a thing. They know the church will not take this news lightly. The Duke's expression hardens, turning to Eidos for answers. He asks if our boy knew about this all along. Eidos bows, apologizing for keeping it a secret. He explains he needed to find the true mastermind. The Duke leans forward, demanding to know who it is. Eidos reveals that dark mages have infiltrated his house, and the person who brought them here is none other than his own daughter, Lady Chelsea. She frantically denies the accusation, but her father isn't listening. The Duke grits his teeth, furious at her betrayal. He covers his face, his rage and shame palpable. He orders his soldiers to lock her and her accomplices away. The guards immediately drag the defeated mercenary away. Chelsea panics, knowing her secrets are about to be exposed. She screams for her personal guards to protect her. Her men clash with the Duke's soldiers, creating chaos. The Duke has had enough, calling for his guard knight. He gives a simple, chilling command. Apprehend Chelsea. Igal steps forward, ready to obey his master's orders. The guard knight walks forward, his duty clear. Chelsea's men stand ready to defend her, but Igal's eyes glow with an immense power. He unleashes his aura, a clear warning to step aside. Her guards realize they are completely outmatched. They tell their lady to run while they buy her time. Igal draws his blade, calling their loyalty unfortunate. He moves in a blur of green energy, a single slash flying past Chelsea's head. She can only stare in absolute terror. Her guards stand frozen, their fight already over. A single clean strike was all it took. Guess they won't be getting a severance package. Chelsea's face twists into a mask of pure rage. She falls to the ground as her last line of defense crumbles. Igal approaches, his aura radiating pure menace. She begs him to stay back, his reflection in her eyes. But he looms over her, his duty absolute. A voice calls out, and the knight Howitz appears. Chelsea desperately begs him for help. Howitz grits his teeth, torn by his loyalty. He steps between them, raising his spear to defend her. Eidos watches from the side, calling the man an idiot. Igal reminds Howitz of his long service to the duchy, and of the high regard the Duke holds for him. He gives a simple warning about the consequences of his choice, but Howitz's spear begins to glow with power. His face is a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Igal gives a final chilling command, stand down or be executed. The knight begins to sweat, his resolve wavering. He lowers his head, admitting his defeat. Chelsea can only stare as her last hope kneels in defeat. She's dragged away by the Duke's guards, screaming in protest. Thrown before her father, she begs him to listen to her side of the story. But the Duke silences her with a single cold command. He accuses her of dragging their entire family into ruin, and declares that bringing her into his house was his greatest mistake. Talk about a tough performance review. His words shatter what little hope she had left. He orders his men to remove her from his sight. Her desperate cries are silenced by a guard's hand. She's dragged away, her pleas falling on deaf ears. Eidos watches from the side as justice is served. Chelsea's eyes burn with pure, unadulterated hatred. Eidos takes in the scene, his plan complete. A small, satisfied smile crosses his lips. A few days later, in the duchy's dungeon, screams echo off the walls. One of Chelsea's accomplices is being brutally interrogated. The Duke's guard knight, Igal, oversees the process. The man confesses everything about the charm fragrance. Igal has heard enough, calling for the next prisoner. He confirms his suspicions. Chelsea was using dark mages to build her power. He looks over at his former lady, asking why she betrayed them. Chelsea lies on the cold floor of her cell, broken and alone. Her hand scrapes against the stone, her will not yet broken. She slowly pushes herself up, her face a mask of defiance. Her father's cruel words echo in her mind. She grits her teeth, wondering who is truly to blame. A memory surfaces of a happier time, a young girl with a flower crown. She remembers offering it to her father only to be ignored. His cold rejection crushed her spirit, and the flowers fell to the ground just like her hopes. His father's cold gaze haunts her memory. She screams, asking why he always looked at her that way. Back in the present, a familiar face brings her a meal. The knight Howitz slides a plate through the bars. Chelsea can only glare at the meager offering, but she reaches for it, her will to survive taking over. She eats ravenously, knowing this can't be the end. She vows to survive, no matter what it takes. Guest prison food is a great motivator. Howitz can only watch, his expression pained. Elsewhere, Eidos finishes his daily training. He announces that his work for the day is done. Victor approaches, greeting his young master. He explains that the Duke has summoned him. Eidos looks up, wondering what this is about. Later, wine is poured into a glass. The Duke offers a drink, inviting Eidos to try it. Eidos compliments the fine liquor, much to the Duke's delight. The older man takes a sip of his own. He seems to be in a surprisingly good mood. He then offers Eidos some cheese to go with the wine. Eidos politely accepts the gesture. As he takes a bite, the Duke explains his decision about Chelsea. He's surprised Eidos didn't want to investigate further himself. But the Duke reveals they've lost all of the dark mages. He confirms that while they caught her associates, the mages were gone. Eidos realizes he may have made a mistake by stepping back. The Duke explains he'll leave the tracking to the church to avoid suspicion. He admits that Chelsea never revealed their identities. Eidos takes a drink, processing the frustrating news. The Duke puts his glass down, admitting she wasn't always this way. He reveals that Chelsea's mother was a commoner. He'd met her by chance during his younger days. And at first, he refused to believe the child was his. He was ashamed that someone of low birth carried his blood, and so he cast them both out of his life. But as time passed, he grew curious about his abandoned child. He ordered an investigation to find out what happened to them. He learned the mother had died from the plague, and that his daughter had somehow survived all alone. So he finally brought her into his household. He admits it was an uncharacteristic move for him. Guess he had a rare moment of conscience. He supposes it was because she was family, but he wonders if she ever truly wanted to be part of his. Perhaps she believed her desperate schemes were the only way to earn his acknowledgement. He lets out a heavy sigh, lamenting the life she could have had. He blames the alcohol for his sudden bout of honesty, but their conversation is interrupted by a frantic servant. The man rushes in, clearly in a panic. He stammers that something terrible has happened to Lady Chelsea. The Duke's expression turns to one of pure shock. Down in the dungeons, the guards are screaming in terror. They've discovered a horrifying sight in one of the cells. Lady Chelsea has taken her own life. A few days later, Victor is complaining about laundry duty. He scolds his master for not separating his clothes properly. You'd think a former Death Knight would be better at sorting. Eidos just listens, completely unfazed by the lecture. Elsewhere, the Duke stands alone, lost in thought. Eidos peeks in, learning 4 days have passed since her death. The official report ruled her death a suicide. And with that, the investigation has come to a close. The crisis at the Gold Pixie estate seems to be over for now, but Eidos knows this is far from the end. Victor tries to get his master's attention, but Eidos just tells him to stop whining. That night, under a full moon, the knight Howitz stumbles through a dark alley. He slams into a wall, overcome with grief. He collapses, completely broken by his failure. He can only whisper Lady Chelsea's name. Guess someone's having a rough night. He remembers a time when she was just a young girl, asking him if her father would like some flowers. She believed they held a special kind of magic, a symbol of when her parents first met. She was so sure the gift would make him happy. Her innocent hope moved the young knight. He'd assured her that it definitely would, but in the present he can only apologize for failing her. He slams his head against the wall in despair. He curses himself for his weakness, screaming that he should have protected her. The moon watches over his lonely grief. He slumps to the ground, completely spent. But a voice suddenly calls out to him. It's the maid, Rebecca, who served Lady Chelsea. Howitz can't believe she's here. She strikes him across the face without warning. Talk about a warm greeting. He grabs her, furious that she would dare show her face. She tries to explain, but he's not listening. He calls her a filthy dark mage ready to end her, but she screams for his help in getting revenge. Howitz questions her talk of revenge. She reveals Chelsea didn't take her own life, but was brutally eliminated. He lets her go, his mind reeling from the news. The knight demands proof for such a wild accusation. She reminds him that Chelsea was never one to give up, and that she heard the truth from those who found the body. They describe the terrible state she was in. The wounds were severe enough to be fatal. She accuses the Duke of staging the scene to hide his family's disgrace. Howitz realizes the cold man he serves is more than capable of it. Rebecca admits she had her own motives, but Chelsea treated her like a sister. She places a hand on his, vowing not to let this go. She will get revenge on the duchy for what they did, and to do that, she needs his help. Looks like she came prepared. A strange pink energy begins to envelop the grieving knight. His eyes lose their focus, his will no longer his own. He asks what she wants him to do, his eyes now glowing. The empty wine bottle lies forgotten on the street. Howitz walks away, a puppet on a string. A cloaked figure emerges from the shadows, congratulating her. He admits he was worried the spell wouldn't work on a mid-class knight, but he explains that even the strongest have a weakness in their heart, a weakness that makes them vulnerable to enchantment. And for Howitz, that weakness was Chelsea Goldpixie. Rebecca laughs, calling the knight a fool. He doesn't even know that they were the ones who orchestrated her death. She asks her boss if they really have to go after Eidos. He confirms it, reminding her that Eidos killed their man, Agito, and that he interfered with the grand cause of their mysterious leader. Under a blood-red moon, he declares they'll use this chance to kill him for sure. That night, inside the Gold Pixie estate, Eidos continues his training, his aura calm. but he senses a presence lurking in the shadows. The candle flame is suddenly extinguished, plunging the entire room into darkness. The trainees launch their surprise attack from all sides, but Eidos is completely unimpressed by the ambush. The lead knight, Pabel, brings his sword down, but Eidos sends him flying with a single kick. The young knight lands in a heap on the floor. His face is a mask of pure frustration. The other two are already down for the count. Eidos calls their performance pathetic. He reminds them they failed to land a single hit. Pabel braces himself for another round of training, but Eidos announces that sparring is over for the day. The three of them can't believe their ears. Pabel is a little too happy about the news. Eidos tells them to rest for the next 2 days. He wants them to think about what they've learned, which, from their perspective, was just getting beaten up. He realizes none of them understood his true intentions. His goal wasn't just simple physical training. He was trying to teach them something more. But it seems at least one of them is starting to get it. The other two, however, are completely lost. Eidos gives a confident smile, his work complete. 2 days later, on the leafy plains, the Knights of House Gold Pixie arrive for the duel. Igaol asks Eidos for his assessment of their opponents. Eidos calmly assesses the opposing army, noting their high level of skill. It's not just their impressive equipment that stands out. Each individual soldier is a formidable warrior in their own right. The Duke laughs, admitting his rival is good at training his men. Eidos listens quietly, taking in the scene. A messenger arrives, requesting a meeting between the representatives. The Duke tightens his grip on the reins, considering the offer. He agrees to the meeting, deciding to see what they want. Meanwhile, in the Lionbloom camp, things are a little less organized. Holland Lionbloom tries to wake his son with a very gentle kick. He demands to know why his son is still sleeping on such an important day. The eldest son, Michael, finally wakes up, complaining about the noise. He has absolutely no interest in the duel, much to his father's rage. The man's patience is clearly wearing thin. He declares he'll just have to face Damien Haxon himself. But the name Damien seems to get his son's attention. His father explains that Eidos is the Gold Pixie's chosen champion. A wicked grin spreads across Michael's face. This changes everything. Back on the plains, the Duke and his men arrive for the meeting. He notes that their opponents are late, as usual. Holland finally arrives, calling the Duke narrow-minded for caring. The two leaders immediately start bickering like old rivals. Igaol clears his throat, and Holland greets him warmly. He tries to poach the guard knight again, calling his loyalty a waste. His attention then turns to Eidos, and the Duke confirms who he is. Holland's eyes narrow, remembering what our boy did to his son. He reaches out a hand, but something makes him hesitate. A strange feeling of unease washes over the powerful noble. He wonders why he feels so tense in front of a low-class noble. He even considers that Eidos might be on par with his own son. Holland can only scream in confusion, but Michael's eyes are locked onto his opponent. Eidos just looks back, wondering what the fuss is about. Michael's hand tightens on the hilt of his sword. He suddenly lunges forward, his eyes glowing with rage. His blade is drawn in a flash, aimed directly at the unfazed Eidos. A clear attempt to end this before it even begins. His expression is one of pure, murderous intent. But his father grabs his arm, ordering him to stop. Guess someone's about to get grounded. Holland can't believe his son would be so reckless. The Duke's guard knight, Igaol, steps in to scold him. He reminds the young noble that his actions are a grave crime. The Duke demands to know how they'll take responsibility. Holland realizes his son's body must have reacted on instinct, as if he were facing a wild, untamed beast. The Duke sees this as the perfect opportunity. He offers to overlook the incident, much to Holland's surprise. But he wants to add a few new terms to the duel. Of course there's a catch. He gives a sly, knowing smile. Holland grits his teeth, knowing he has no choice. He agrees to accept all of the new conditions. With the deal made, he and his son turn to leave. The Duke waves them off, calling his rival a crafty old man. He then asks Eidos why Michael would react so violently. Eidos just shrugs, playing it off with a casual smile. But he knows the truth. His opponent has awakened a sixth sense. Michael looks back, realizing this duel will be far more interesting than he thought. Holland demands an answer, but his son just asks if he saw it too. A new level of focus burns in his eyes. He knew Eidos anticipated his every move, and the thought of a true equal sends a thrill down his spine. Holland realizes his son, usually bored, has finally found a worthy rival. Michael casually apologizes for forcing his father into a bad deal, but Holland just smirks, dismissing the concern. He declares that victory will belong to House Lionbloom. Their family banner waves proudly in the wind. With the pleasantries over, the first match is set to begin. Igaol asks Eidos who they should send out to gain momentum, but another knight steps forward, offering his own recommendation. He introduces himself as Sir Sebastian Vincenzo, their trainer. He claims he has a far more suitable candidate in mind. Eidos recognizes him as the man who trained those three stooges. He can sense the man's jealousy, worried Eidos will steal his glory. So Eidos agrees, deciding to let the man have his moment. Vincenzo gives a confident smirk, ready to present his choice. He plants a massive spear into the ground and introduces his son, Fabian, as their first champion. The young knight vows to win and regain the Duke's favor. The Duke notes the boy's talent, hoping for a victory. Eidos watches as the Lion Bloom champion steps forward. A large, powerful warrior named Ronald. The two combatants face each other, and the first duel begins. Fabian proudly announces his name and house, but his opponent reveals he's just a commoner with no family name. Fabian's face twists in disgust at the revelation. Ronald just mocks him for fighting with his tongue. Guess he's not here to make friends. The insult sends Fabian into a rage. He lunges forward, vowing to show the commoner his place. A gold pixie knight notes that their champion has made the first move. He unleashes a powerful slash of blue energy, but Ronald meets the attack with a smug grin. Fabian grits his teeth, putting all his strength into the blow, but his opponent deflects it with ease. Ronald calls him pathetic, and Fabian's rage boils over. He lunges again, screaming that his foe is just a commoner. But Ronald's blade glows with a menacing red light. A single brutal blow ends the fight in an instant. Eidos watches from the side, completely unfazed. But Fabian's father can only scream in horror. Ronald tells the defeated knight that he's fired. Holland Lionbloom gives a smug, satisfied smirk. He declares the first duel a victory for his house. The Lionbloom banner waves proudly in the wind. Vincenzo rushes to his son's side, begging him to hold on. Eidos knew this would happen. Their champion was far too weak. Igor can only sigh, cursing their rivals. Holland mocks them for their brutality. Sure, we'll go with that. The trainees panic, urging Eidos to join the next match. But Eidos explains that if he fights now, no one will be left to face Michael. Igal realizes he's right. They need to save their trump card. Eidos smirks, saying he has someone else in mind. He points directly at the terrified Pabel. The young knight can only tremble, asking if he really means him. Eidos tells him to just remember his training and that he'll definitely win. His friends cheer him on, their faith unwavering. The Duke questions the choice, but Eidos assures him Pabel is ready. He declares victory is certain, as Pabel looks like he's about to be sick. The young knight takes his place, his sword held tight. He trembles, wondering what to do as a new opponent looms over him. Pabel can only stare up in terror at his opponent. The Lionbloom knight introduces himself as Huey Celestion. Pabel knows he's completely outmatched, stammering his own name. Huey admits he's disappointed Eidos isn't his opponent. He decides to just end this quickly and take the win. Pabel tries to steady his nerves, knowing he must stay focused. Their blades meet in a furious clash of steel. He barely manages to dodge a powerful follow-up blow, but a swift kick sends him sprawling to the ground. Huey is surprised he blocked the first attack, admitting he's better than he looks. Pabel wonders if it was just a lucky break. He sees the next attack coming in a blur of red energy, and somehow he manages to block it perfectly. He slides back, using the momentum to create some distance. He looks on as the dust settles from the powerful blow. Another massive slash of red energy comes hurtling toward him. He grits his teeth, blocking the strike once again. Huey can't believe it. That was an attack aimed at his blind spot. The two exchange blows, their movements becoming faster. Pabel is already breathing heavily, struggling to keep up. He can't believe what's happening. He glances back at Eidos, finally understanding his master's plan. Eidos just gives a confident smirk. The kid is finally caught on. The swordsmanship Eidos used during their training was the signature style of House Lionbloom. After being beaten by that very style for a month straight, his body now knows how to block it instinctively. He realizes Huey's technique is the same, but far slower than Eidos's. With newfound confidence, he sees a path to victory. He plants his foot, ready to turn the tables. Pabel declares that today he will surpass himself, and that his sword will pierce the very heavens. He ducks under Huey's attack and lands a decisive blow. The Lionbloom knight can only stare in disbelief. The Duke and his guard knight are completely stunned. Even Holland Lionbloom can't believe what he's seeing. Huey collapses to the ground, utterly defeated. Pabel stands over him, declaring his victory. His fellow trainees erupt in a massive cheer. Eidos just gives a small, satisfied smile. The second duel officially goes to House Gold Pixie. A cloaked figure in the crowd notes Huey's surprising loss. Igal realizes the final match is now up to Eidos. Michael Lionbloom steps forward, his aura flaring. He and Eidos lock eyes, ready for the final battle. Igol and Eidos share a look of quiet confidence. Michael walks onto the field, saying this is what he lives for. He's waited his entire life for a true equal. This guy needs a hobby, but Eidos just scoffs, dismissing the very idea. Michael grips his sword, begging him not to disappoint. Edis's eye reflects his opponent's powerful charge. The young Lionbloom heir unleashes his full power. Back in the Lionbloom camp, the defeated Huey begs for his life to be ended. But Holland tells him to get up. His opponent was just stronger. He confidently states that victory belongs to them anyway, because their true trump card is his son, Michael. Huey accepts the command and is told to go rest. But Holland notes that Huey is far stronger than a normal knight. He wonders how all his attacks were anticipated, as their sword art is a family secret. A dark realization begins to dawn on his face. Michael tries to explain his excitement to his father. He declares he's never felt so alive in his entire life. He's finally found someone just like him, and vows to win. He promises to bring his father a decisive victory. Holland just smiles, telling his son to enjoy the fight. Michael gives a wicked grin, ready for the battle of his life. The scene flashes back to his childhood, when fighting was still fun. He remembers the pure joy of learning swordsmanship from his father. He was filled with dreams of facing powerful warriors. But as time went on, his interest began to fade. Even the strongest knights he faced were no match for him. Victory became a boring, predictable outcome. He found the lack of a true challenge incredibly dull. Eventually, he even lost the will to pick up his sword. He stood alone, surrounded by the defeated. But then, a new challenger appeared in the distance. He looked up. His interest peaked for the first time in years. He finally saw him, Damien Haxon. Back in the present, the two warriors face each other. Michael grips his sword, begging Eidos not to disappoint him. He charges forward, his red aura flaring with incredible power. Eidos' eye reflects the incoming attack. Michael brings his massive sword down with all his might. His eyes are locked on his opponent, his focus absolute. The blade glows with a menacing red energy. But Eidos just watches, completely unfazed by the display. He meets the attack with a simple flick of his finger. Michael's eyes widen in shock as an invisible force hits him. The impact sends both warriors flying backward. Michael digs his sword into the ground, struggling to stop his momentum. He digs his heel into the dirt, finally stopping his slide. Their blades meet in a furious clash of red energy. A crazed, ecstatic smile spreads across Michael's face. He slides back, already preparing his next move. Eidos looks on, wondering how his attack was blocked so easily. But Michael just grins, his suspicions confirmed. He knew his eyes hadn't deceived him. He declares that Eidos really is the best. A massive wave of red energy forms a monstrous jaw. The two warriors collide again in a brilliant flash of light. Michael's eyes are filled with a newfound focus. As the dust settles, he looks up to see Eidos standing unharmed. He taunts him, asking how long he plans to keep dodging, and demands he draw his sword to make this more enjoyable. This guy's idea of fun is a little intense. Eidos' hand tightens on the hilt of his new blade. He smirks, telling his opponent there's not a chance. He declares that his own sword will reach him first. Michael just gives a wicked, challenging grin. A flash of blue light as Eidos finally draws his weapon. The two warriors move in a blur of speed and power. Michael's eye reflects his opponent's calm, ready stance. The very ground splits apart from the force of their clash. Michael falls to the ground, seemingly defeated. Eidos' reflection is captured in his opponent's eye. A strange, shattered reflection of Eidos appears in the sky. Michael looks up, his world completely turned upside down. His face twists into a mask of pure, unhinged joy. The spectators can only wonder what he's doing. His father screams at him to stand up and draw his sword. But Michael just laughs, certain that he had just died. Eidos looms over him, asking if he still thinks they're equals. Michael can only tremble, wondering if it was all just a mirage. He admits defeat, and the final duel goes to House Goldpixie. Later that night, Holland Lionbloom is not taking the loss well, but Duke Goldpixie is in high spirits, hosting a victory banquet. He raises a glass, inviting everyone to celebrate with them. Holland grits his teeth as the Duke's men approach. He tries to compose himself, but the rage is still there. The Duke suggests they put their differences aside for the night. He even offers to pour his rival a drink, all while taunting him about who the real winner is. Classy. Meanwhile, Michael has become Eidos' #1 fan. He admits he still doesn't understand what happened, but he could sense Eidos' power without even fighting. His father can only watch, baffled by his son's surrender. He takes a drink, unsure what to make of the situation. Eidos thinks the Duke is a fool for inviting the losers. The man may seem generous on the surface, but this party is clearly just a way to mock his rival. Eidos just smiles, his own objective now complete. He's secured victory for the Duke and weakened the Lionblooms. The celebration continues around the roaring campfire. But Eidos knows there are still other matters to resolve. He looks up as a familiar figure approaches. It's Michael, nervously asking if he can join him. He pours Eidos a drink, gushing about his newfound respect. Eidos is a little confused by the sudden change of heart. Michael explains he'd given up on ever finding a true peer. It's revealed that Michael possesses superhuman senses, and that he'd fought Aedos in a mental space of his own creation. And in that mental space, Michael finally realized the truth, that Aedos was a being on a completely different level, a monstrous power that filled him with absolute fear. Aedos explains that his instinct to surrender is what saved him. Michael looks up at the stars, humbled by the experience. He eagerly asks his new rival for some advice. Aedos tells him that while his talent is rare, it's not unique. He knows of at least 3 others in the Empire who are even stronger. He warns the young noble not to become arrogant. Aedos admits that he too once thought he was the best, until he was defeated by a far greater power in his past life. Michael asks if that's the humble mindset Aedos lives with now. But Aedos just scoffs, saying he knows he's the best. So much for that life lesson. He clarifies that unless you're as strong as him, you can't be complacent. Michael seems to take the confusing advice to heart. A voice calls out, commenting on their newfound friendship. It's Duke Goldpixie with a very grumpy Holland Lionbloom in tow. The 2 young men stand to greet the approaching nobles. The Duke explains he's finished his discussion and came to find Aedos. Aedos wonders what they could have been talking about. The Duke reminds him of his reward, access to the Leon Bloom vault. He mocks Holland for being stingy, much to the man's rage. Holland turns to Aedos, his expression hardening. He gets uncomfortably close, his anger palpable. But then he backs off, offering a surprising apology. He formally apologizes for sending his knights to the Haxon estate. Aedos is unimpressed, but Holland says he still can't open the vault. Instead, he offers a different kind of compensation, a gift to serve as both an apology and a reward. He opens the box, revealing a ring imbued with spatial magic. He explains it was crafted in the White Tower. Aedos is stunned, knowing it's worth a small fortune. He admits it's not what was promised, but he'll accept. He takes the ring, settling the score for now. Holland offers more, and Michael suggests a sword. But Aedos has something else in mind. He remembers a specific item he wants. He asks for one final favor. He requests one of their famous bows. Holland is confused by the strange request. Aedos gives a very unconvincing reason, claiming he needs it to marry off his brother. Yeah, that's totally believable. Meanwhile, back at the Haxon estate, Abel is not having a good night. He channels his frustration in a healthy way. Back at the Gold Pixie estate, the next day arrives. The Duke is surprised to see Aedos preparing to leave. Aedos explains it's time to return to his family. The Duke reluctantly agrees, but asks him to wait one more day for an escort. He claims it's to ensure a peaceful journey. Aedos knows he doesn't need it, but accepts the offer. He thanks the Duke for his hospitality and prepares for the journey home. The next morning, they set off. Aedos and Victor ride with their new escort. Victor is thrilled to finally be heading home. He's relieved that all the trouble is finally over. Aedos gives him a look, and Victor quickly backtracks. Victor complains about the long journey, but Aedos promises to whip him back into shape. One of the escort knights says he'll set up camp for the night. Aedos calmly agrees to the plan. As night falls, they settle around a crackling campfire. The 2 knights stand guard while Aedos and Victor relax. Victor proudly presents a plate of freshly grilled meat. He cheerfully invites the knights to join them for dinner, but they politely decline, saying they'll eat separately. Aedos watches the exchange, his expression unreadable. He recalls the 3 trainees who were a bit more enthusiastic. In fact, they were downright clingy when he left. Pabel tearfully thanked him for opening his eyes to a new strength. Aedos just patted his head, acknowledging their hard work. The 3 of them vowed to never forget his lessons, and gave him a very dramatic, very synchronized farewell bow. They thanked him one last time for his guidance. Aedos was left a little bewildered by the intense display, but he gave them a final encouraging smile. Back in the present, he watches the quiet camp scene. The 2 knights exchange a subtle, knowing glance. Their expressions harden with a grim resolve. One of them offers to scout the perimeter, but Aedos tells him not to bother. The knight insists, his eyes glowing with a sinister purple light. Aedos' senses flare as he realizes the danger. He moves in a blur, striking one of the knights down instantly. The man cries out as the blow connects. The other knight stands over him, his arm glowing with dark energy. Aedos realizes these aren't escorts, they're assassins. The man's hand pulses with a sinister purple aura. His weapon glows with the same corrupted power. He scoffs, saying a couple of low-class knights can't possibly stop him. The second knight stands ready to defend his post, but his face twists in shock as he recognizes the new arrival. It's Sir Howitz, his eyes glowing with a sinister purple light. The knight demands to know why he's betraying them, but 2 more cloaked figures emerge from the shadows. It's Rebecca, her eyes glowing with a familiar dark magic. The other knight is caught in her spell, a bewitching scent. He's completely entranced by the powerful magic. Eidos covers Victor's face, telling him he has no choice. He delivers a swift chop to the back of his servant's neck, knocking the poor kid out cold to protect him from the spell. Rebecca continues her enchantment, making their heads spin. The enthralled knight can only beg her to stop. But Eidos delivers a powerful blow, ending his struggle. With the escorts and Victor down, only Howitz remains. The male mage notes that Eidos wasn't affected by the spell. Rebecca agrees, her curiosity piqued by his resistance. She suggests they kill him and dissect him for research. For science. Howitz prepares to attack, his spear glowing with dark energy. He vows to offer Eidos's life at Lady Chelsea's grave. Eidos draws his sword, ready for the fight. He smirks, mocking the knight for being so afraid of Igal. Howitz's face contorts in a mask of pure rage. Rebecca chimes in, calling Eidos cold-blooded for his taunts. The mage questions his confidence against the three of them, but Eidos reveals he knows exactly who they are, Yulan executives. Rebecca can only stare, completely stunned by his knowledge. Eidos just points to his ear, saying he's a good listener. Howitz's spear glows with a dark blue flame, dismissing his bravado. The three of them prepare to launch their combined attack. Howitz's spear glows with dark energy, vowing a painful end for Eidos. But Eidos dashes forward with incredible speed. He clashes with the knight, their blades meeting in a flash of blue light. The Yulan executives watch with a mix of surprise and confidence. But Eidos suddenly appears behind the male mage. He tells them they're quite mistaken, because he's not alone either. A new figure appears, introducing himself as Sebastian Vincenzo. Looks like the cavalry has arrived. Back in the Duke's office, Eidos bows in understanding. He thanks the Duke for everything he's done, but the Duke has one last favor to ask. He explains that Ernst Howitz has gone missing. Eidos listens, his expression serious. The Duke believes Howitz holds a grudge against them both, and that he may seek revenge alongside the Dark Mages. Eidos takes in the grim news. The Duke explains that while he has Igul, Eidos has no one, so he intends to assign another knight as his guard. Eidos looks up as the Duke calls for someone to enter. A familiar knight steps into the room. Eidos recognizes the man immediately. It's none other than Sebastian Vincenzo. The Duke explains he was the only mid-class knight available. Talk about scraping the bottom of the barrel. He entrusts Eidos' protection to Sir Sebastian. The knight vows to guard him with his life. But Eidos knows the Duke had given Vincenzo other orders, to follow him in secret and provide protection from the shadows. The Yulan executives are now surrounded. Eidos knew that if Vincenzo was openly by his side, the enemy wouldn't show. It was all a clever stratagem to draw out the hidden dark mages. A flashback reveals how Howitz was manipulated, fed lies by the Yulan executives to fuel his rage. He vowed to kill everyone involved in Chelsea's death, his mind completely twisted by grief and dark magic. Back in the present, the mage offers to spare Sir Sebastian's life, but the knight calls his arrogance astounding. He powers up, his own aura flaring with blue light. Eidos notes his power is exactly what you'd expect from a mid-class knight. The mage admits that in a fair fight he would lose, but he's not fighting fair, unleashing a dark power-up of his own. Guess he hit the gym and the dark arts section of the library. Sir Sebastian is horrified, realizing he's using black magic. Rebecca explains he's traded his life force for immense strength. The mage's eyes glow with a sinister purple light. He leaps forward to demonstrate his new power. Sebastian is stunned by the overwhelming aura. He realizes his opponent is on another level now. The mage taunts him, saying he should have run when he had the chance. He unleashes a devastating blast of dark energy. Sir Sebastian can only watch as the attack closes in. Eidos observes the fight from a safe distance. The attack explodes with incredible force. Eidos stands in the aftermath of the blast. The ground itself has been torn asunder. His eyes narrow, taking in the scene. The mage looks on with a crazed, confident grin, but his expression quickly turns to shock. The other Yulan members can't believe their eyes. Sir Sebastian emerges from the dust, completely unharmed. He claims the attack was nothing, but knows he can't hold out forever. He tells Eidos to escape and get reinforcements, but Eidos just gives a calm, knowing smile. He agrees with Sir Vincenzo's assessment, and promptly makes a run for it with Victor. The Yulan executives are not about to let him go. Rebecca declares that he's not going anywhere. The mage unleashes a flurry of dark energy claws, while Howitz vows to stop Damien Haxon himself. But Sir Vincenzo's blade is ready. He meets the brainwashed knight's attack head-on. The two mid-class knights are locked in a fierce duel. Vincenzo declares they'll fight to their last breath. Howitz can only scream his name in pure rage. He vows to end the loyal knight right here. Their clash sends a shockwave through the forest. Meanwhile, Eidos dodges an attack from the shadows. He carries Victor, evading the dark magic. The two mages appear, mocking his escape attempt. Guess they enjoy their work. They taunt him for trying to save his servant. But Eidos just gives a confident smirk. He tells them they're the real fools here. The two executives can only stare in confusion. He explains he only lured them away from the others. Now he can finish this quickly and rescue Sir Vincenzo. The two mages are left completely stunned by his plan. But the male mage just gives a crazed grin. He asks if Eidos really thinks he can face them both. He tells Rebecca to stand back, ready to handle this himself. He gathers a massive amount of dark energy, forming a monstrous shadow from the corrupted magic. Eidos just looks up, completely unfazed by the display. The monstrous form writhes as the mage properly introduces himself. His voice echoes from a jaw filled with razor-sharp teeth. He is Mustang Fury, a Yulin captain with his vice-captain Rebecca. Eidos calmly assesses the situation, recognizing their frenzy faction magic. The mage is surprised he knows of them and boasts of their incredible power. He looms over Eidos, ready to demonstrate that power firsthand. But our boy braces himself, ready for the impact. Mustang Fury unleashes a devastating beam of pure dark energy. The attack slams into the ground with explosive force and carves a path of destruction through the forest. The mage is impressed, wondering how Eidos managed to withstand the blast. He admits the rumors about the young noble weren't exaggerated after all. Eidos notes his opponent's physical abilities are far beyond a mid-class knight. The mage's corrupted tentacles lash out with incredible speed. Eidos is forced to dodge the relentless assault. But one of the strikes sends him flying back into a tree. The mage gloats, believing he's finally caught his prey. His eye glows with a sinister, murderous light. He brings his massive fist down, but Eidos raises his hands to block. He unleashes a new technique, Myriad Insight. The powerful blow is deflected with impossible ease. He recalls his training, realizing the Duke's elixir helped him master this new skill. Mustang Fury can only roar in frustration at the cheap trick. Eidos's body glows with a brilliant blue aura. He grips his sword, ready to end this. A flurry of blue slashes forms a net of pure energy, trapping the beast. The mage can only watch as the attack closes in. Eidos stands ready, his counterattack complete. The mage is stunned, wondering how a mere noble could hide such power. He admits Eidos is strong, but declares it's still not enough to win. Mustang Fury scoffs, saying his tricks are useless. He boasts that the power of dark mana allows him to regenerate. Eidos just smirks, a trickle of blood on his face. He was worried this would end too soon, but this is even better. The monster gives a wicked, confident grin. Eidos agrees, saying it's more fun when you can finally cut loose. Elsewhere, the other duel rages on. Sir Sebastian grits his teeth, pushed to his absolute limit. He dodges a flurry of attacks from the brainwashed Howitz. The loyal knight is already breathing heavily. Howitz mocks him, saying it's respectable he's lasted this long. But Sebastian calls it humiliating to lose to a cheater. Howitz just raises his weapon, knowing victory is inevitable. He looms over his opponent, ready to end the fight. Sebastian knows he's right. All he can do now is hold on. He glances at the distant explosion, begging Eidos to hurry back. But Eidos is having the time of his life. The monster's grin widens, enjoying the challenge. Eidos readies his blade, ready to go all out. Guess fun has a very different meaning for these two. Mustang Fury calls him more arrogant than he thought. He gathers a massive ball of dark energy in his mouth. Eidos's eye reflects the incoming blast, his focus absolute. The monster unleashes a devastating beam of pure destruction. The attack hurtles forward with incredible force, but Eidos just raises his sword to meet the blow. The tip of his blade glows with a brilliant blue light. He meets the attack head-on, shattering the dark energy. The mage can only stare, wondering how he blocked it. Eidos stands completely unfazed by the display. Mustang Fury can only scream in pure, unadulterated rage. Eidos unleashes a powerful slash of blue energy. The attack slams directly into the monster's chest. Mustang Fury scoffs, claiming he won't be able to do it again. But Eidos's eyes burn with a cold determination. He unleashes another, even more powerful web of slashes. The monster struggles to regenerate from the devastating blow. He realizes with horror that his healing has stopped working. Eidos explains that regeneration from dark mana has its limits. The mage demands to know how he knows so much about them. Eidos just smirks, suggesting a beheading might be more permanent. Seems like a reasonable suggestion. But the monster laughs, saying he forgot about his partner. His eyes glow with a sinister light. He screams for Rebecca to attack now. The female mage begins to chant, her hands glowing with dark power. She weaves a complex and sinister spell, unleashing a seventh circle black magic, instant death. The two of them gloat, certain of their victory. A spectral reaper swings its scythe down at Eidos, but a strange energy glows from Eidos' hand. The dark magic begins to unravel and dissipate. The reaper's form shatters into nothingness. The spell is completely nullified before it can even connect. The two Yulan executives can only stare in disbelief. Mustang Fury's eye widens in absolute shock. Eidos mocks them, calling their ultimate spell pathetic. The mage screams that it was the culmination of Yulan's research. Talk about a bad product review. Eidos just laughs at the disgusting creatures. He calls black magic a parasitic force that devours souls. He then says he has a fun idea, and will use the very power they worship to slaughter them all as a dark energy erupts from his back. A massive, shadowy form erupts from his back, a display of pure dark power. Rebecca can only stare in horror, asking if that's black magic. Eidos confirms it's a level they've never seen before. He unleashes a 9th circle spell, Pitch Darkness. He gives a wicked grin, enjoying their disbelief. The two Yulan executives realize this is impossible. With a simple flick of his finger, he sends the sphere of absolute darkness hurtling toward them. The spell engulfs them completely, their screams echoing in the night. The monster's form is torn apart by the overwhelming power. Eidos stands alone in the aftermath of the blast. A satisfied smile crosses his lips. The fight now over. He looks down at his hand, covered in the remnants of his foes. Just then, Victor begins to stir, wondering where he is. Eidos calmly points to his servant's face. Victor touches his cheek, asking what's wrong. He looks down at his hands, realizing they're covered in blood. The young servant begins to panic. He collapses, convinced this is how he finally dies. Talk about a flair for the dramatic. But Eidos just tells him it's the dark mage's blood, not his. He looks over the battlefield, annoyed he forgot to ask about someone named Dorgo. He decides there's another way to get the information he needs. Dark tendrils of magic swirl around his outstretched hand. He reaches for the corrupted remains on the ground. The dark substance begins to rise and coalesce. Two glowing orbs of purple energy begin to form. The two spheres float ominously in the air. He'll just have to get the information from their summoned souls. The two soul orbs hover before him, waiting for a command. He reaches out, ordering them to spill everything they know. Meanwhile, the other duel isn't going so well. Howitz unleashes a devastating strike from above. Sir Sebastian can only scream as his armor shatters. He plants his foot, refusing to fall. But he's clearly on his last legs. The brainwashed knight slowly approaches his defeated foe. He promises to make Sebastian's end a quick one, but the loyal knight vows to take him down with him. A very optimistic retirement plan. A voice suddenly praises him for holding out so long. It's Eidos, having returned from his own fight. Howitz's rage turns to our boy, vowing to kill him next. Eidos just smirks, holding up the souls of his fallen allies. He gives a simple warning. Take one more step and die. Howitz just laughs off the empty threat. He lunges forward, ready to end this once and for all. But Eidos' smile never wavers. He clenches his fist, crushing the two soul orbs. The tip of the spear stops just short of his eye. Eidos has caught the attack with his bare hand. Sir Sebastian can only watch in absolute awe. A dark energy begins to swirl around Eidos' hand. The power flows into Howitz's corrupted form. It begins to drain the dark magic from his body. The knight can only scream as his power is stripped away. His terrified reflection appears in Eidos' eye. He makes one last desperate lunge, but collapses at Eidos' feet, completely spent. Eidos explains a simple rule of dark magic. When the caster's soul is destroyed, their spells break. Sir Sebastian looks on as the corrupted knight is finally free. Eidos explains it's just a side effect of the dark mana leaving his body. Sir Sebastian struggles to his feet, asking about the dark mages. Eidos helps the injured knight, supporting his weight. He tells them it's time to return to the Duke's estate. Back at the Gold Pixie Manor, Eidos seems to have expected something. The Duke formally thanks Sir Sebastian for his service. But the knight insists Eidos is the reason he's still alive. The Duke smiles, agreeing with the sentiment. He turns to Eidos, saying he owes him his gratitude as well. Eidos just says he did what was necessary, downplaying his victory. He confirms that with the mages gone, Howitz is finally free. The Duke tells him not to be so modest, he's purged a great evil. He hopes that with this resolution, the souls of the fallen can finally find their peace. Eidos watches the Duke, his expression unreadable. He announces that with the matter settled, he'll be returning home. But the Duke asks him to stay, saying there's someone he must meet. Eidos is confused by the sudden request. Just then, a cloaked figure with white hair enters the room. Eidos' eyes widen in absolute shock. The woman greets him by name with a brilliant smile. Later, the two sit together in a garden gazebo. The Duke and Victor spy on them from a nearby bush, as one does. The Duke whispers about the visitor from the church. Igaol notes that appearances can be deceiving. The Duke senses a strange tension between the two of them. From his perspective, they seem to be having a pleasant chat. Eidos calmly takes a sip of his tea, but the reality of their conversation is far more intense. The woman smiles, noting his long history with dark mages. He admits he didn't expect to see her again so soon. Agnes gives a bashful, knowing smile. She explains she volunteered for this mission just to see him. Guess someone's got a crush. She then asks if he learned anything about the mages he defeated. Eidos decides telling her the truth would be too complicated, so he lies, claiming they were weak and unaffiliated. Agnes seems to believe him, though she suspected they were from Yulan. Eidos notes her long-standing pursuit of the group and asks why. She hesitates for a moment, her hands tightening on her cup. She's after a specific dark mage who was once with Yulan, a notorious murderer responsible for thousands of deaths, a monster known only as corpse play. Eidos's eyes widen, the name clearly familiar. Agnes's holy aura flares with rage at the mere mention of him. She explains that no one knows his real name, but his title became infamous after a terrible incident, when a noble's entire territory was overrun by the undead. The town was plunged into chaos overnight. Holy knights were dispatched to handle the threat. They fought their way through the horde of monsters, but by the time they finally cleared the town, they discovered a horrifying scene in the main square, a grotesque monument built from the bodies of the dead with his name scrawled across it. The memory alone is enough to make one sick. Agnes explains the monster did it all just to make a name for himself. Eidos senses a deep personal anger from her. He knows he can't tell her the truth, because he actually knows the real name of this corpse play. In his past life, the man would rise to become a legion commander, and his undead army would slaughter millions of humans. Agnes gets his attention one last time. She asks him to please tell her if he ever learns anything more. Eidos agrees, hiding the truth behind a calm expression. He stands, declaring that his testimony is complete, and asks if the interrogation can finally be over. Agnes thanks him for his cooperation. Eidos gives a polite but clearly practiced smile. He calls out to the Duke, announcing that the questioning is done, and asks if he can finally get back to his schedule. The Duke, covered in leaves, reluctantly agrees. He brushes himself off, saying there's no reason to keep him, and wishes Eidos a safe journey home. The scene transitions, a fountain marking the end of his stay. Back at the Haxon estate, things are much quieter. Eidos' sister Louise looks out over the fields, waiting. Her brother Abel approaches, asking what she's doing. He wonders if staring at the road will make Eidos come back any faster. She just smiles, saying she'll be back inside soon. Abel asks if she's really that worried about him. She admits that she is with a simple yes. She calls him a gentle boy, while Abel recalls his brother's more aggressive side. Gentle is certainly a choice of words. Louise worries about how he was treated at the duchy, but Abel knows Eidos was probably the one doing the intimidating. The two siblings stand together, looking out at the horizon. Louise quietly wishes for her brother's safe return. Her eyes suddenly widen with surprise. Abel notices her sudden change in expression. Her gaze is fixed on something in the distance. She spots two familiar figures on the road. Eidos waves, announcing his return as his sister's face lights up with joy. He presents his father with a cart full of books from the duchy. His father is overjoyed, recognizing the rare poetry and novels. He then turns to his mother, who looks on in surprise. He reveals a set of exquisite furniture made from rare wood. Next up is his sister, who eagerly asks about her own gift. He unveils a grand piano, a personal treasure from the Duke himself. She throws her arms around him, overjoyed by the incredible present. Eidos just smiles, patting her head as Abel watches from the side. He finally turns to his brother, asking about his strange expression. Abel just makes a face, insisting that nothing is wrong. Yeah, totally convincing. But Eidos gives a knowing smirk, seeing right through the act. He asks if his brother is sulking, which Abel quickly denies. Eidos then reveals his own gift, a spatial storage pocket. He reaches into the swirling portal of blue energy, explaining this present is just for his brother. He pulls out the magnificent bow he requested from House Lion Bloom. He whispers that it would be the perfect gift for a certain Lady Copperhead. Since his brother wants to get married, he's decided to lend a hand. Abel panics, wondering how his brother could possibly know his secret. He admits his crush doesn't even know he exists, but Eidos just tells him not to worry. Big Brother has a plan. He explains that the Copperhead family is hosting a martial tournament. The plan: Abel will join the tournament to get her attention. But Abel panics, reminding him it's a contest of swordsmanship. Eidos just tells him not to worry about that little detail. He gives a confident thumbs up, leaving his brother confused. because he'll be the one fighting in his place. Now that's a wingman. A few days later in the small town of Rivercross, rumors of the Copperhead tournament are already spreading. The prize is massive, and the chance to win the ladies' favor has everyone talking. The patrons gossip about the tournament's contestants. They mention that Damien Haxon is among them. His reputation precedes him, with tales of his victory over Michael Lionbloom. One man jokes that Aidos is also handsome, a threat to his own title. His friends can only stare at his misplaced confidence. But at another table, a woman laughs at the exchange. Her companion, a blonde knight, is not amused. He gets to his feet ready to make a scene, and accuses the men of laughing at him, the self-proclaimed handsomest knight in town. The woman tries to explain the misunderstanding, but he's not listening. He accuses the man of flirting with his fiancée. The poor guy has no idea what's happening. Before a fist connects squarely with his jaw, the man is sent flying across the tavern. The blonde knight glares, furious at the perceived slight. The other patrons draw their swords, ready to defend their friend. But the knight just scoffs, calling them arrogant fools. He walks forward, ready to teach them a lesson. His eyes glow with a menacing red light. His companion, meanwhile, looks incredibly bored by the whole thing. She lets out a yawn as the fight rages on. A body flies past her table, but she doesn't even flinch. Guess this is just a typical Tuesday for her. A few moments later, the tavern is a wreck, and the men are all defeated. The knight plants his boot on one of the fallen men. He grabs him by the collar, asking if he recognizes him now. He delivers one last brutal blow. The woman finally stands, commenting on their opponent's ignorance. The knight Jackson Cutter smirks, proud of his title as the Ogre Slayer. His fiancée Sophia embraces him, stroking his ego. She calls the defeated men idiots for not knowing any better. She notes he was a nobody until very recently, and his former fiancée, Sophia Russell, demands to know what scam he pulled. Meanwhile, back at the Haxon estate, another journey begins. Their mother and sister are sad to see them go so soon. Eidos assures them they'll be careful. He steps forward, ready to depart. His father admits he's still worried about the long trip. He apologizes to Abel for not arranging a marriage proposal sooner, but reminds them that their safe return is the top priority. He gives Abel a final pointed look, reminding him of their private conversation. Abel gives a sharp salute, promising not to forget. Eidos puts a hand on his brother's back and promptly shoves him into the carriage. The two brothers set off for Copperhead County. Inside, Victor can't stand the awkward silence. He asks the young masters why they aren't talking. Abel just hides behind his book, unsure what to say. Victor decides to take matters into his own hands. He asks Abel how he came to fall for Lady Copperhead. The question sends Abel into a complete panic. Eidos admits he's also curious about the story. He tells his brother it's the perfect time to share. Abel stammers, embarrassed by the sudden interrogation. He finally relents as the others get ready for story time. He explains that it all happened 4 years ago. He had attended a social gathering with their father. He was in awe of the grand ballroom and its guests, and it was there that he saw Lady Olivia Copperhead. He watched her from across the room, completely captivated. He remembers her elegant green dress, and how beautiful she looked that day. Eidos concludes he just fell for a pretty face. Love at first sight, classic. But Eidos knows there's more to the story. In his past life, the Count rejected Abel's proposal, leaving him to die alone and unmarried, at Eidos' own hand. A dark memory from a life he's trying to change. He recalls his brother's unfortunate fate. Talk about a rough ending. But this time, he's determined to change that outcome. Abel is just a little creeped out by his brother's sudden intensity. 3 days later, they arrive in Copperhead County. The town is in the middle of a grand celebration. They take in the impressive scale of the festivities, but a well-dressed man stops them at the entrance. Victor proudly announces their arrival from House Haxon. The name seems to catch the man by surprise. He asks if he's speaking to the famous Damien Haxon. The head butler, Connor, quickly apologizes and bows. He then leads them into the estate. They're guided toward the guest lodgings. The room they're given is incredibly spacious. He tells them to call if they need anything. Eidos takes in their new surroundings. He notes the Count must be a generous man, but Eidos knows the Count he remembers wasn't this courteous. He suspects it's just an attempt to curry favor. Funny how a little fame changes things. He tells the others to rest while he explores, but Abel insists on going with him, citing a promise to their father, a promise to stop Eidos from causing any trouble. Eidos just laughs, asking if he looks that reckless. The answer is yes, Abel. Yes, he does. Eidos tries to brush past a woman in the street, but she stumbles and falls to the ground. A familiar blonde knight comes rushing to her aid. He grabs Eidos by the collar, furious at the slight, but his anger turns to surprise as he recognizes the face. The woman Sophia confirms it's Damien Haxon. Idas, however, seems to have no idea who they are. Sophia gets to her feet, embarrassed by the awkward reunion. Aidos just stares back, completely silent. The knight demands to know who he is, confused by the act. It's Sophia Russell, Aidas's former fiancée. Well, this is awkward. She's furious that he's pretending not to know her. Aidos calmly suggests they talk things out. Just then, Abel and Victor poke their heads out of the carriage. Victor immediately recognizes the woman. He calls out her name in surprise. Aidos turns to his brother, feigning ignorance. Victor explains that this is Sophia, his ex-fiancée. The revelation leaves her completely flustered. Aidos's expression hardens as the memory returns. He remembers these two faces all too well. A flashback to a rainy day when a younger Aidos was dragged away, begging Sophia to listen to him. She coldly dismissed him as a good-for-nothing. He pleaded with her, unable to accept the sudden breakup. But she just looked down on him with a cruel smile. She claimed their engagement was just an old promise, and that a low-class noble could never be worthy of her. Her words left the young man completely heartbroken. The two of them laughed as he was cast aside, told to never return. Back in the present, Aidos's fist clenches with rage. He remembers Jackson charging in to attack him. The first blow had landed without warning, followed by a brutal one-sided beating. He was left broken and defeated in the pouring rain. Jackson had slowly approached his fallen form. He'd grabbed him by the collar, mocking his weakness, and called him a piece of filth who didn't know his place. Aidos had reached out a hand, trying to fight back, but all he could see was Sophia's cold, uncaring face. He remembers that day all too well. His eyes burn with a quiet, simmering fury. Sophia mocks him for pretending to be cool after his embarrassment. Aidos just stares back, his expression unreadable. Jackson laughs, calling him as pathetic as ever. He assumes Aidos is just trying to cut ties now that he's famous. The knight gives a smug, condescending grin. He offers a hand, pretending to be happy to see him, but his true intent is to teach Aidos a lesson. Aidos just looks at the outstretched hand. He agrees to the handshake with a calm smile. Jackson's grin widens, ready to crush his hand. But Aidos sends him flying with a single, effortless motion. Sophia can only scream in absolute shock. Aidos's eyes glow with a dark, menacing energy. He slams the so-called Ogre Slayer into the ground. He apologizes sarcastically for not controlling his strength. Sophia can only whisper her fiancé's name in terror. The defeated knight's hand lies limp in the dirt. Aidos draws his sword, a confident smile on his face. Jackson's face twists into a mask of pure rage. Aidos just grins, suggesting the first to get a nosebleed loses. But a new voice suddenly orders Jackson to stop. The knight looks up in shock, recognizing his master. A cloaked man notes how strong the useless brat has become. Aidos senses the man's power, at least a mid-class level. The master asks his student how far he's progressed. He tells Jackson to stop fooling around and come back. But Jackson protests, pointing to his bloody nose. Guess he already lost the game. The master's eyes glow from the shadows, his patience wearing thin. He gives a final chilling command to follow him. Jackson grits his teeth, vowing to make Aidos pay for this. Aidos watches them go, wondering what that was all about. The mysterious man walks away without a second glance. He introduces himself as Jacques Noir, telling Aidos to remember it. He promises they'll meet again soon enough. Aidos watches them leave, his expression unreadable. He repeats the name to himself, a new player on the board. A wicked grin spreads across his face. This just got interesting. Jacques Noir seems to feel the exact same way. The scene shifts to the tournament grounds, ready for the main event. Elsewhere, Jackson complains to his master for intervening. Jacques' face contorts with a furious snarl. His sharp-clawed boots step forward menacingly. He grabs Jackson by the throat, reminding him not to cause a scene. The knight can only stammer an apology, completely terrified. Jacques throws his student to the ground in disgust. He tells the fool that Aidos would have killed him. Jackson can't believe what he's hearing. But his master confirms that Aidos's power is now far beyond his own. Jacques gives a final warning. Never start a fight with Aidos again. He tells his student to focus only on winning the tournament. Jackson questions the order, confused about winning another lady's favor. But Jacques erupts in a furious aura, silencing his student. The young knight can only tremble in absolute terror. His master explains that this is all to achieve his own personal wish, a wish that leaves his student completely bewildered. A strange blue energy begins to gather in his hand. He declares with a crazed smile that he will ascend to the master realm. Well, that's not ominous at all. Jackson can only stare, stunned by the revelation. Jacques tells him to prepare while he gathers intel on their opponents. He then slips behind a curtain, where Sophia is waiting. She calls out to Jackson, her expression concerned. She rushes to his side, worried about the marks on his neck. but Jackson just fumes, frustrated by his master's cryptic plans. He vows that once he's strong enough, he'll be the one to end his master. The day of the tournament finally arrives. In the crowd, people are already whispering about Aedos. They know he looks just as nasty as the rumors claim. Victor points out his master's newfound celebrity status. An official steps forward to begin the opening ceremony. He announces the event is to celebrate his daughter's birthday. The host, Count Chester Copperhead, welcomes all the guests. Abel's eyes are fixed on one person in particular. The reason he's here, Lady Olivia Copperhead. The Count declares that the winner will gain fame across the entire region. Eidos watches from the crowd, ready for the tournament to begin. Elsewhere, Sophia fishes for compliments from a very distracted Jackson. The Count explains the tournament will last 2 days with team and individual matches. He assures them that healers are on standby so they can fight without holding back. And from the shadows, Jacques Noir watches the proceedings. The Count announces the first match will begin in 2 hours. He looks forward to witnessing the valor of the knights. Eidos stands with his brother and servant, a confident smile on his face. He tells them he'll see them later, and they wish him well. Elsewhere, the Count's expression is far more serious. He asks his daughter, Olivia, to at least pretend to be happy, but she scoffs, asking if she ever wanted this party. She calls it a simple show of prestige, much to her father's rage. He insists that even if she's not interested, the contestants are. He's certain the monster hunt will get everyone cheering. The crowd is already chanting for their favorite champions. Eidos stands in the arena, his own name echoing from the stands. Jackson Cutter glares, annoyed he's in the same group as our boy. But he hears his own fans cheering his name. He smirks, thinking a monster hunt is the perfect stage for him, and vows to make sure everyone remembers his name. Someone's ego is working overtime. The gates open, and the knights prepare for battle, but the contestants inside look up in sudden confusion. A horde of monsters charges out, led by a massive troll. The knights panic, telling everyone to scatter. The massive beast charges forward, its shadow looming over the arena. But Eidos stands his ground, completely unfazed. A small cut appears on his cheek from the sheer pressure. He just smirks, admitting he didn't expect this. He notes that the Count seems to have a dangerous hobby, but a dark, monstrous aura suddenly engulfs the Count. Abel and the other spectators can only scream in horror. Sophia covers her mouth, her eyes wide with terror. The Count's body is thrown against the wall, his reign coming to an abrupt end. The crowd panics, wondering if the Count is truly dead. Lady Olivia can only cover her mouth in absolute horror, but a nearby noble scoffs at how easily the man fell. Olivia screams at her father, asking why he would release a troll. He dismisses her concern, saying it's to find a true winner. The crowd, however, begins to cheer for the contestants. Their fear quickly turns into a thirst for entertainment. The possessed Count smirks, knowing the audience loves a good show. He explains that the more stimulating the fight, the better, because people love watching others risk their lives from a safe distance. The troll roars, its eyes glowing with a menacing light. Its wounds begin to regenerate almost instantly. Jackson curses, realizing a single attack won't be enough. As the other knights scatter, Eidos just watches from the side. He finally understands why they had to sign that death waiver. Well, that's one way to handle liability. The troll raises its fists, ready to bring them down. Jackson struggles to block, admitting he can't win this alone. But a female knight joins the fray, giving him a surge of confidence. She unleashes a flurry of powerful blue slashes. The attack connects, staggering the massive beast, but the troll just swats another knight away with ease. The female knight lands gracefully, ready for another attack. A spearman charges in, hoping to turn the tide. He unleashes a powerful spinning attack of his own. His face is a mask of pure, focused determination. The blow lands, but the troll is far from defeated. The knight leaps into the air, ready to deliver a final blow. But the troll catches him mid-air, his attack stopped cold. The beast's grip tightens, crushing the knight's arm. Jackson sees an opening and drinks a potion, his eyes glowing with power. He unleashes a powerful slash of blue energy. The attack connects, and the troll roars in pain. Sophia swoons, cheering for her champion. Jackson stands over the beast, declaring the fight is over. He proudly announces his name to the roaring crowd. He poses over the fallen monster, soaking in the glory. Guess he's not a fan of confirming the kill. But the troll's hand suddenly grabs him by the head and slams him face first into the arena floor. Sophia can only scream his name in terror. Jackson realizes with horror that there was a second troll. Eidos decides he has no choice but to step in. He walks forward, commenting on the Count's ridiculous hobby. The second troll turns its attention to the new challenger. Jackson can only watch, thinking Eidos is insane. The massive beast brings its fist down with incredible force. But Eidos just raises a hand, using his myriad insight. He stops the powerful blow with a single effortless touch. He runs up the monster's arm, moving in a blur, and leaps into the air using its head as a springboard. The troll can only look up, completely bewildered. Eidos prepares his secret art, the Blade of Death. Jackson can only stare in absolute disbelief. Eidos's eyes glow as he brings his weapon down. His face is a mask of pure, focused power. Victor cheers wildly from the stands, leading the chant. Soon, the entire stadium is screaming Eidos's name. Even the possessed Count is impressed by the display. Eidos lands, his blades now clean. Jackson can only look on, his pride completely shattered. Eidos walks past, tossing him a potion and mocking his weakness. That night, a grand banquet is held at the Copperhead estate. The noble ladies can't help but whisper about the handsome Haxon brothers. Eidos and Abel have certainly cleaned up well for the occasion. Abel asks his brother where he found such fancy clothes. Eidos explains he bought them from a famous shop in Landwork. Abel is touched by the gesture, thanking him for the expensive gift. The women continue to swoon, declaring Eidos their new favorite. Guess winning cures all social ills. But a nearby wine glass is suddenly shattered by a clenched fist. Jackson Cutter can't stand to hear another word of praise for his rival. He fumes, wondering why no one recognizes his own greatness. He glares at Eidos from across the room, his jealousy palpable. He turns to Sophia, looking for some much-needed validation. But she's too busy staring at Eidos with a newfound interest. She wonders if he was always this handsome. Well, this is getting complicated. Just then, an announcer declares the arrival of Count Copperhead. The host and his daughter make their grand entrance. A large brazier burns brightly at the center of the hall. The Count welcomes his guests to the tournament. Sophia and Jackson watch from the side, his mood still sour. Eidos and Abel listen quietly to the speech. The Count announces he will now reveal the prize for the winner. The crowd murmurs in anticipation of the valuable reward. He then plunges his hand directly into the roaring flames. Abel and the other guests can only gasp in shock. The Count just laughs, telling everyone not to be alarmed. He pulls his hand out, completely unharmed by the fire. He explains it's all thanks to a special treasure. A glowing red orb, the heart of the salamander, floats in his palm. Eidos's eyes widen as he recognizes the powerful artifact. And from the shadows, Jacques Noir gives a wicked grin, having found exactly what he came for. The two rivals share a wicked grin, their eyes set on the same prize. The Count explains the heart's power to protect its owner from flames. He calls it a treasure of immeasurable value, his face reflected in its glow, and declares that the winner of the tournament will receive this very prize. Eidos scoffs, knowing they don't understand the artifact's true worth, but he admits that the prize is certainly tempting. The Count concludes his speech, inviting everyone to enjoy the banquet. He signals for the festivities to begin. An orchestra begins to play as the party gets underway. A massive cake stands at the center of the celebration. A noble approaches the Count, introducing himself. The Count recognizes his house, famous for its delicious apples. The man presents a gift to celebrate the young lady's birthday, a special cosmetic made with spirit powder. The Count gives a polite but dismissive thank you. Another noble quickly steps forward to present his own gift, a rare necklace made from a crystal dropped by 100 golems. Talk about a grind. But the Count just tells them to hand the gifts to the steward. Eidos notes that ordinary gifts won't impress such a wealthy man. Just then, Jackson Cutter steps forward to greet the Count. The Count has never heard of the Ogre Slayer and asks what he wants. Ouch. Right in the ego. Jackson explains he has a gift for the Count himself. He presents a legendary potion, the elixir of condensed vitality. He recalls his master's orders to give the priceless elixir away. The Count shows the gift to his daughter, who seems mildly impressed. The Count promises to remember Jackson's name. Jackson bows, confident that his plan worked perfectly. Eidos tells his brother Abel that it's almost their turn. He walks past Jackson, who looks on in confusion. Eidos smirks, knowing Jackson still failed to win the lady's favor. The Count greets Eidos, praising his impressive feats from earlier. Eidos humbly dismisses the compliment, much to the Count's amusement. He glances at Lady Olivia, noting her complete disinterest in the party. He whispers to Abel, confident that their gift will finally get a reaction. Eidos steps forward, announcing he has a present for the young lady. The Count is intrigued, curious to see what he's brought. Eidos reaches into his spatial pocket, and the Count recognizes the magic. He pulls out a long, dark object from the swirling portal, and reveals a magnificent handcrafted bow. The reveal leaves both the Count and his daughter completely stunned. The other guests whisper among themselves, thinking it looks cheap. The Count is unimpressed, certain his daughter won't like it. But Olivia suddenly exclaims how amazing the bow is, much to his surprise. She eagerly asks if she can hold it. Well, that's a change of tune. Eidos gives a knowing smile, telling Abel to present the gift. Later, as the party continues under the evening sky, Olivia tests the tension of the bowstring. A satisfied smile spreads across her face. Eidos knew his intel was correct. Her hobby really is hunting. She comments on the bow's incredible elasticity. Eidos confirms it was made from the horn of a minotaur. The other guests are shocked by the revelation. They know a minotaur is a monster, even a mid-class knight would struggle with. Olivia inspects the bow further, noticing an inscription. She realizes it was crafted by the legendary blacksmith, August. Eidos just gives a calm, confident smile. The Count is so excited he snatches the bow for himself. He knows August is the best blacksmith in the entire kingdom. He can't believe he's holding such a priceless treasure, but Olivia quickly takes it back, reminding him it's her gift. Sharing is not caring, apparently. Olivia thanks Eidos for the precious gift, but he quickly gives all the credit to his brother, Abel. Olivia is delighted, eager to hear how he acquired it. Eidos suggests she hear the story from Abel himself, much to his brother's terror. She eagerly agrees, her eyes sparkling with interest. The Count gives his blessing, happy to see his daughter so engaged. Eidos gives his brother a gentle nudge forward. Abel is a blushing, stammering mess, but he walks forward knowing he has to seize this chance. He formally greets Lady Olivia, his moment finally here. The two share a dance, a perfect start to the evening. Elsewhere, a foot steps forward from the shadows. Jacques Noir admits their plan has hit a snag. He underestimated Eidos, who has won over both the Count and his daughter. He grits his teeth, realizing the Haxon brothers could take everything. He decides it's time to make a move, telling Jackson to follow him. Jackson tells Sophia to wait for him. He follows his master up the grand staircase. Eidos watches them go with a knowing, confident smile. The next day arrives in Copperhead County. The two brothers and Victor walk through the bustling town. Eidos gives his brother a teasing look, much to Abel's discomfort. He compliments him on how smoothly he handled the conversation last night. Abel puffs out his chest, insisting he can do anything he sets his mind to. We'll see about that. Eidos just laughs as Victor cheers his master on. Victor wishes young Master Haxon good luck in the upcoming match. Abel quietly thanks his brother for everything. Eidos turns, sensing his brother's gratitude. Abel clarifies, thanking him for creating the opportunity. Eidos just teases him, asking where the real Abel has gone. He says this much is to be expected. Abel can only look on, still a bit stunned. Eidos tells him to focus on getting along with Lady Olivia. His brother gives a confident, determined smile, and with that, they head off toward the arena. The one-on-one tournament begins and Eidos clenches his fist. He delivers a single, devastating blow to his opponent, sending the armored knight flying across the arena. Guess that guy's tournament run was short. He stands over the fallen man, his victory absolute. In the stands, his brother and servant cheer his name wildly. With another easy win, Eidos advances to the finals. As the crowd roars, a cloaked figure approaches from behind. She calls out to Abel, her voice urgent. He turns to find Lady Olivia, her face a mask of panic. She tells him that his brother is in